your eyes open to darkness and cold air. Heavy curtains block the weak London sun. The room smells of damp stone, old coal smoke, and last night's stew. You are not a queen yet. You are a small girl with a long name, Alexandrina. People call you Dina. The year is 1819. The place is Kensington Palace. It looks grand from the outside, but inside it is a maze of narrow halls, peeling wallpaper, and rooms that never feel truly warm. You sleep in your mother's room, in a little bed next to hers. She is the Duchess of Kent. She says it is for your safety, she says. A princess must never be alone. You are never alone. A maid stands by the door. A footman waits in the hall. Even your dog, Dash, lies under your chair like a small soldier on guard. Good morning, princess, whispers. Baroness Lazon, your German governess. She is strict but kind. She is the only adult who looks at you like you are a person, not a chess piece. She helps you dress in a plain white frock. No silk, no lace. Your mother believes simple clothes make a good character. You want to run down the stairs by yourself. You want to feel your feet thump on every step. But there is a rule: you must hold someone's hand on the stairs. This rule will last not for weeks, not for months, but for years and years, until you are almost grown. Breakfast is porridge, a slice of dark bread and weak tea. The palace is rich, but your meals are small. Your mother believes rich food is not good for children. She also believes hot rooms are unhealthy, so the fire is low and your fingers are cold. Lessons begin soon. Your day is full of them. English, French, German, Italian, Latin, music and drawing, history and religion. You study and study until your head aches. You are 5, then 7, then 9, and still the lessons never end. There is a plan behind all this. The adults call it the Kensington system. It has pretty words, but a hard heart. It means you are always watched. It means no close friends your own age. It means no plays, no theatres, and no long rides without permission. It means your world is a small circle. Your mother, the Baroness, and a tall, cold man named Sir John Conroy. Sir John wears perfect coats and perfect boots. His smile is thin. He speaks like an officer giving orders. He is your mother's advisor, but he acts like a king in this house. He decides where you sit. He decides when you speak. He tells the servants what to say to you and what not to say. You do not trust him. Your dog, Dash, does not trust him either. Outside the palace, London changes every day. New factories rise. New chimneys spit smoke. Horse hooves beat the streets. The river smells stronger in summer and freezes in winter. Somewhere out there live your uncle's kings and dukes men with fierce tempers and too many secrets. They fight, they feast, they fall ill. They have many children, but many are not proper heirs. Somehow, while you are learning scales, on the piano and copying verbs in Latin, the line of the throne moves. One cousin dies. One uncle has no lawful sons. Steps on a ladder shift, and your small name moves up. You do not know this at first. The adults do. They look at you and see a crown far away but growing closer. One morning you ask, "May I walk in the garden with Dash?" Baroness Lazan smiles sadly. Perhaps for a short time, if Sir John approves, and the air is not too cold, and there are enough guards, and you stop listening. Even the sun must ask permission to shine on your face. Years turn. You become a good student because there is nothing else to be. You can switch from English to French without thinking. You sing sweetly. You draw neat little houses and tiny trees. In the corners of your copybooks, you hide small pictures of horses, because horses mean speed, and speed means freedom. Sir John watches you grow and builds another plan. If you become queen before you turn 18, the law says your mother can rule as regent. If she rules, Sir John will rule her. He will rule thee. Kingdom from behind a curtain. If the king dies after your 18th birthday, you will rule yourself, and Sir John will have no power. So Sir John waits and whispers and hopes. When you were 16, you travel to the sea at Ramsgate for fresh air. The air is fresh, but you fall. Very ill, fever burns. Your hands shake, your head swims. The room tilts like a ship. Sir John steps near the bed with papers. Sin, he says softly. Make me your private secretary now. It is the sensible thing for your good. Your lips are dry, your heart hammers. You think of the garden, of Dash, of the Baroness's worried eyes. You think of a little voice inside you that has never been allowed to be loud. You lift your chin. I will not sign. Sir John's face closes like a door. He steps back, but you see it. A spark of real anger. After he leaves, you shake all over not from the fever, but from the weight of your own no. It is the first strong no of your life, and it tastes like iron and freedom. You return to Kensington. The palace feels smaller. The rules feel heavier. You count months to your 18th birthday like a prisoner counts days. At last it comes. May 24th, 1837. Your birthday candlelight trembles on the cake. You are 18. You write in a new leather journal your mother gives you. I shall be glad to have my liberty at last. You sleep that night in the same little bed by your mother's side, but your mind is already walking downstairs alone. The King, your Uncle William IV, is very ill. Every whisper in the palace says soon. You do not know if soon will be today or next month, before your birthday or after. You wait, you breathe, you study, you pretend not to notice, sir. John's tight mouth when he looks at the calendar. June 20th, 1837. Before dawn, a loud knock shakes the door. The Baroness wakes you fast. A robe over your nightgown, your hair loose on your shoulders. She looks at you with new eyes. You must go alone, she whispers. Downstairs, they have come. Your heart stumbles. Alone, you have never walked. Down the stairs without a hand. The corridor is dark. The carpet is thick. Every portrait on the wall seems to watch. The steps are very many, and your hand touches the rail. And then you are at the bottom. And you are in the drawing room. Two men wait in black. The Archbishop of Canterbury and the Lord Chamberlain. Their faces are grave, but their bodies are gentle, like people standing beside a bed where a child sleeps. They bow low. Their voices are soft and full. Your Majesty. The words drop into the room like stones into deep water. Circles spread, touching everything you have ever known. You sit because your knees are not steady. They tell you your uncle died at 2:12 a.m. They tell you the crown is yours. They tell you the country is awake and waiting. You feel many things at once. Sorrow for the old king, fear of the wide world, relief, hot and thin, sliding through your chest. You are 18. There will be no regent. There will be no Sir John with papers he made himself. You speak. Your own voice surprises you. It is not small. It is clear. I will be good, you say. It is a promise to yourself, not to the men in black, the mourning. rushes forward. You are moved to Buckingham Palace, new home, and new life. For the first time, you have your own room. The bed is big, and your dog runs in circles and barks. You stand at the window alone and look down at London, grey and wide and real. Carriages rattle, chimneys smoke. Somewhere a woman laughs. Somewhere a boy runs late to work. The city is not a painting. It is a living thing, and it is yours too. Serve. You send a message. Sir John Conroy is banished from your presence. You send another. Your mother will not share your room again. She will live at a quiet distance, with proper respect, but not with power. In your new study you meet the Prime Minister, Lord Melbourne, silver hair, wise eyes, a kind mouth. He does not speak to you like a tutor to a child. He speaks like a sailor to a captain who is brave and new to the sea. He explains the papers on your desk. He answers every question you dare to ask. When you do not know a word, he does not laugh. When you ask for the truth, he gives it. The city outside roars louder. News spreads by foot and by horse and by word sent fast along wires. England has a queen. Crowds push toward the palace gates. People cheer. Some weep, some kneel. Many simply stare, trying to understand how a girl who once needed to hold a hand on the stairs now holds a scepter in hers. That night you are finally alone in your own bed. The sheets smell clean. The room is quiet. Your journal waits on the table. You open it and write fast, as if the words will run away if you do not catch them. I will try to do what is right. I will listen. I will learn. I will not be ruled. You close the book and put your hand on the cover and feel your heart under your palm. Brave and fast. You do not sleep quickly. You think of the Baroness and her tired smile. You think of your mother and the way love and control can look the same and feel so different. You think of Sir John, already a ghost in a house where he is not welcome. You also think of the world you have not seen. Manchester with its tall chimneys and coughing children. Ireland with fields that can fail and families that can starve. Scotland with mountains that make a person feel small in a good way. Ships on black seas. Trains running faster than horses. Wires carrying words like birds without body. You feel the weight of it all, and the weight is heavy, but it does not crush. It shapes. Morning will bring your first audiences, your first orders, your first mistakes. Soon there will be scandals and learning and love. Soon a quiet cousin named Albert will arrive and change your heart. But that is a later chapter. For now, the window shows the first pale light. London wakes. A new reign begins. And a girl who was kept like a bird in a cage takes her first full breath in a room with a door she can lock from the inside. Morning light fills your new room in Buckingham Palace. The city hums outside, but inside it is very quiet. Your dog Dash jumps on the rug. You open your journal and write your new name the way you want the world to say it. Victoria, not Alexandrina. Not Dina, just Victoria. You begin to work. A queen's work is paper and people. Paper first. Red leather boxes arrive with state papers, reports, letters, drafts of laws. People follow, ministers, judges, ambassadors, city leaders, even famous writers who wish to bow and say they have seen their queen. The most important person at first is the Prime Minister, Lord Melbourne. He is 58. You are 18. He is calm, witty, a little sad round the eyes. He sits opposite you like a gentle teacher who knows you can do hard things. He explains the new world. This is how a constitutional monarch behaves, he says. You reign, but you do not rule alone. You advise, you warn, you encourage. Governments come and go. The crown stays steady. You listen and listen. You ask brave questions. He does. Not laugh. He gives you history and also tricks. How to read a room. How to read a man's face. When to pause. When to speak. At night, you write in your journal, Lord M is so clever, so kind. I like him very much. You also make your first firm. Choices. Sir John Conroy is banished from your presence. Your mother moves to rooms far from yours. You are polite, not cruel, but the lock is now on your side of the door. Then comes your first council. Dozens of men in black coats, gold chains, serious faces. The room is hot. Everyone expects a frightened girl. You walk in your small hands steady. You sit at the head of the table. You sign. You speak clearly. Later, old men tell their wives in surprise. She did not tremble. Weeks pass. You appear on balconies. Crowds cheer. The newspapers print your face in little squares and call you the Maiden Queen. You sleep well, work hard, and feel for the first time free. But freedom has storms. The first storm, Lady Flora at Kensington, you learned to carry pain quietly. Now you must learn something harder. Your mistakes become public. A lady at court, Lady Flora Hastings, grows round in the belly. People whisper, pregnant. They also whisper a name, Conroy. You have reason to hate him. Your mother had reason to trust him. You want to believe the worst, that you allow the gossip. You allow a doctor's examination to prove the scandal. The result is shameful, but not for Lady Flora. She is not pregnant. She has a tumor. It kills her soon after. London turns on you. Papers call you cruel. Church bells toll for Lady Flora. Black-edged prints show her pale face. You sit in your room, with the blinds drawn, reading the angry news until your hands shake. Lord Melbourne does not scold. He says softly, "Ma'am, this is what power does. It makes our small faults large. Learn from it. Apologize by conduct. Be just." You begin to be careful, to check, not assume. To ask, not guess. The lesson hurts, so it stays. The bedchamber. Crisis. Your affection for Melbourne is no secret. People start calling you Mrs. Melbourne. It is unfair. It is also true that you lean on him like a daughter on a kind father. In 1839, his government falls. Custom, says the next leader, Sir Robert Peel, the Tory must form a cabinet. Peel arrives, respectful but firm. There is one condition, ma'am, he says. Your ladies of the bedchamber, your close attendants, are wigwives. If I take office, some must be changed to Tory ladies. To you, this feels like a demand to change your friends, the women who help you dress, pray with you, carry your secrets. You are still the girl who was never allowed to choose her company. You say no, Pele cannot accept. He refuses to form a government. Melbourne returns to office. Your heart is glad. The newspapers sing with joy. But under the music, you hear a thin, true note. You have broken the spirit of the system. A monarch should not pick a government by protecting her favorite ladies. Melbourne tells you, gently, "Ma'am, you have won the day and lost a little of tomorrow. Next time, you must bend." You write the lesson in your journal in a tight hand. A queen must love her friends, but love the Constitution more. A city begins to change you in. These early years, you also meet your country in new ways. You ride through Manchester and see long rows of brick, chimneys coughing soot, thin children with eyes too old. You tour hospitals that smell of vinegar and fear. You open schools and shake small ink-stained hands. You hear about chartists asking for votes and miners asking for bread. You are still learning the limits of your power, but you begin to use your voice. Let us support inquiry, you tell Melbourne. Let us protect children in mines. He nods. You are not a minister, but you can press and praise. It matters. And then, while politics grinds and newspapers buzz, love walks in by the side door. Albert arrives at his October 1839. Two young cousins arrive from Germany, Ernest and Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. You met them once when you were 17. At that time, Albert was pleasant, a little shy, not very exciting. Now he walks into your drawing room, taller, surer, with blue eyes that catch the light. He plays the piano beautifully. He speaks of music, painting, astronomy, and poor people with equal care. He is serious without being dull, and when he laughs, he colors like a boy. That night, your diary runs away with you. He is so handsome. His eyes are so blue and beautiful. His mouth is so pretty. 5 days later, the Constitution gives you a strange, sweet task. A queen cannot be proposed to. A queen must propose. You call Albert to your room early, before the morning buzz begins. Your hands are cold, but your voice is steady. Will you marry me? He smiles, really smiles, with his whole face and takes your hands. With all my heart. You breathe again. The wedding February 10, 1840. London is wet with winter rain. That makes stone shine. You wear white, simple, bright, a color that will become every bride's dream. You choose orange blossoms instead of diamonds for your hair. The crowd cheers as you and Albert kneel in the chapel, in your diary, and in your chest, the same sentence glows. The happiest day of my life. Marriage is not fairy tale quiet. The court resists this young man with ideas. Ministers are jealous of his mind. You are used to command. He is used to purpose. Sometimes your words are too sharp. Sometimes his pride is too strong. But at night you talk long and honest, and every morning you both try again. Within months, life throws its new test. Bullets on the Mulsama. 1840. A young man named Edward Oxford steps out as your open carriage passes. He lifts a pistol and fires. The shots crack the air like boards snapping. People scream, horses rear. You do not faint, you do not fall. You grip Albert's arm. He pulls you close and covers you with his body. The guns were loaded, the man arrested. You are safe. The city changes its mind about you in one heartbeat. The crowd that once hissed over Lady Flora now cheers a brave young queen and her protective husband. You ride again soon after to show you are not afraid. Women throw flowers. Men shout until their throats are raw. Family and the hard truth. By the end of the year, you are pregnant. This is the part of the story people like to make soft and pretty. For you, it is not soft. You love Albert wildly, and the bed is a blessed place, but you hate the sickness, the swelling, the loss of control. You write things many men would not expect a queen to write. I do not like babies when they are very small. Pregnancy is the shadow side. In November 1840, you give birth to a daughter, Vicky. The pain is a storm you do not describe. The calm after is strange and new. You look at the tiny face and feel two truths at once. Fierce love and a fierce wish to be yourself again. Later, you will know the name for the dark clouds that follow birth postpartum sadness. But now you only know that some mornings the light will not come in unless Albert opens the curtains for you. He does. He also changes the future in smaller ways, drawing up nursery rules, planning lessons for little minds, designing safer stoves, better windows, improved drains. He studies factories and poorhouses. He writes reports. He asks you to read them. Slowly, the court stops sneering. Ministers find his notes useful. You find his company necessary. More children come Bertie, the future Edward VII, then Alice, Alfred, and more in the years to follow. Between pregnancies, you work without pause. You receive ambassadors, open hospitals, sign bills, read the boxes, and ride out among your people. You and Albert make a home wherever you live. Windsor full of fresh air and family sketches. Osborne. House by the sea, which Albert designs to be simple and bright. Balmoral in Scotland, where the hills are medicine and the heather smells like forgiveness. The young Queen learns to share power politics shifts again. Peel returns as Prime Minister. This time, when he asks to change some ladies of the bedchamber, you say yes. The lesson from 3 years before holds. You keep your dignity and keep the Constitution safe. Peel, who expected a stubborn girl, finds a steady queen. He respects you. You begin to see how a monarch can be above parties without floating away from the people. You watch Albert at your desk in the evenings, sleeves rolled, head bent over, reports. He is not king, but he does kingly work, quiet, careful, faithful. Sometimes you quarrel because you are a flame and he is a compass. Then you make peace. He becomes your true partner, in public and private. When you walk out together to the great exhibition later that is for another part, people will call you the model family. They will copy your Christmas tree and your dog names and your habit of walking arm in arm. But for now, in these early 1840s, you are simply two young people building a marriage in the middle of a storm called Britain. At night, after the house is still, you write again. I was a bird once in a cage. Now I am a bird with a nest and wings. Both, Lord M taught me how to fly carefully. Albert teaches me where to fly and why. The candles burn low. Beyond your window, railway whistles cry in the dark, and telegraph wires begin to lace the land like bright nerves. The world is speeding up. Smoke over the cities thickens. Children still climb into machines. Cholera rides the water in poor streets, and yet there is also music in the parks, books in shop windows, a spirit that says, we can make things better. You close the journal and turn out the lamp. Tomorrow brings more papers, more people, more choices. Soon there will be trains to ride, cities to see, and a glass palace full of impossible wonders. Soon there will be grief too, the kind that changes the shape of a life. But not tonight. Tonight you breathe in your own room, yours by right. Yours by strength and sleep beside the man you chose. Night settles over Buckingham Palace. The city hums like a great machine. From far away you hear a thin crier train. Whistling, the sound feels new, like the future calling through fog. On your desk lies a timetable Albert has marked in pencil. He wants you to see the north with your own eyes, mills, chimneys, people, smoke. Not numbers in a report, but faces. Come and look, he says softly, opening a map. If we are to reign well, we must understand how our people live. You go. The north, the royal train glides faster than any coach. You sit by the window, hands folded in your lap, and watch London slide past rows of brick, church spires, washing lines, then green fields, then black lines of coal smoke on the horizon. The air grows heavy, dark with soot that rubs off on the glass when you breathe on it. Manchester receives you with cheers that taste of coal. You smile from the carriage. You wave until your arm aches. Behind the crowds, you catch flashes of the other city narrow courts, wash hanging like flags of surrender. Children barefoot in November. Inside a cotton mill, the sound hits like a wall. 1,000 metal teeth bite the air. The overseer shouts inches from your ear, and you still cannot hear. Heat presses your skin. Wet air keeps the threads from snapping. White fluff floats everywhere like a cruel kind of snow. You see small bodies dart between machines, quick hands tying broken threads, small backs bent low. A girl looks up. She cannot be more than 9. Her hair is tied back with a rag. Her eyes are old. She gives you a crooked smile and returns to her work because the machine does not stop for queens. You leave the mill with your head ringing. The street feels quiet only because you cannot yet hear anything but the stamp of the engines inside. Your skull in the carriage. Albert takes your hand. "We must help make this safer," he says. "Children should be in school, not inside machines." You nod. You have seen Parliament pass words into law, dry as paper. Today you saw why words must be strong. Soon after, more protection becomes law. Children's hours are limited. Women and little boys are banned from coal mines underground. Dangerous parts of machines must be fenced. These are not perfect laws. They do not fix poverty. But they are doors, small ones that open toward a better room. At night, back in London, you cannot fall asleep. When you close your eyes, you hear the looms. You open your journal and write. We must remember their faces. You underline the sentence twice. A city that makes people sick. The capital looks grand from a distant stone. Arches, carriages rolling. Up close, London has a smell that clings to the back of the throat. In some streets, the gutters run brown even on dry days. Watermen carry heavy buckets from pumps. They do not ask where the water comes from. They ask how much. Then cholera comes, like a thief. One day, a man buys eels at market. That night, he is cold and blue. A mother washes a child's shirt. By morning, the child is dead. Fear runs faster than any horse. Churches are full. So are graveyards. A quiet Dr. John Snow walks the streets with a notebook and a map, while others blame bad air. He knocks on doors and asks the same gentle questions. Where do you live? Where did you drink? He draws black marks where the dead lived. The marks cluster like bees around a single pump on Broad Street. He speaks to the parish. They remove the pump handle. The deaths fall dot. The newspapers argue. Many do not believe water can carry death. But you remember that strange brown smell. You remember the river in summer. You ask your ministers simple questions with sharp edges. Can London have clean water? Can we carry filth away from people's homes? What will it cost us if we do not? They look at one another. Cost has more than one answer. Money on paper lives in the ledger of God, a palace of glass before the worst of the stink comes. Your husband dreams something lovely. Let us build a house for the world. Albert says, eyes bright, a place where anyone can see what human hands can make. A great exhibition, engines beside carpets, clocks beside statues, iron beside lace. Men frown, they say it is impossible. Where would you put such a thing? How would you hold it together? Then Joseph Paxton, a gardener who loves iron, sketches a building like a giant greenhouse light, bright, made of glass and iron ribs. He draws trees inside it, so nature and machines can share the same air. The design looks like hope in 1851. The Crystal Palace rises in Hyde Park. You ride there with Albert on opening day through crowds already trembling with wonder. The building catches the sun and throws it back in 1,000 sheets. Inside, the light is soft and everywhere. People flood in, workers on cheap days, merchants in black coats, ladies holding the hands of children who cannot walk slowly. You move along aisles where steam engines breathe like huge animals and printing presses pound with calm fists. There are textiles from India, porcelain from China, tools from Birmingham, tiny watches humming like bees. A giant hydraulic press crushes wood as if it is a biscuit. A tiny toy steam engine pulls a circle of cars and children gasp when the wheels catch. You stop before a case that glitters like ice, the famous diamond, glass hard and cold. You prefer the machines. They work. They change lives. Someone in the crowd starts to clap. It spreads like summer rain. You look at Albert and see all he wished for shining around you. For months, the exhibition will stay open. Millions will walk through. Poor men will bring their sons. Housemaids will come on their only day off to float under the high roof and say, "So this is the world," when it closes. The profit will build museums and schools in South Kensington, places where anyone can study art and science, not just the rich. People will call that district Albertopolis, half joke, half love letter. That evening you write, "Today, England felt like a bright room with the windows open." Albert sleeps beside you, tired and happy. You lie awake and feel the building still shining inside your ribs. The grate stinks 7 years later. The air itself turns against the city. Summer 1858 is hotter than anyone can remember. The Thames drops low and slow. Every sewer in London, most of them just ditches and drains, empties straight into the river. Heat cooks the filth. The water turns from brown to black to a kind of moving gel. The smell resides a heavy hand that presses on every face in Parliament. Members hold handkerchiefs soaked in chloride of lime over their noses and still gag. Papers call it the Great Stink. Boatmen curse. Rivermen fall sick. The city learns a truth it should have learned long ago. You cannot live with your own waste and expect not to die from it. At last, the answer is not more perfume but engineering. An officer with clear eyes and a builder's mind, Joseph Bazar. A plan. Miles of great brick sewers, deep main lines running along the river banks, smaller lines feeding them like the roots of a tree, new pump houses to lift the flow, new embankments to hold the city up and the stink down. Men doubt. The cost is huge. The digging will take years. They argue in the House. They argue in newspapers. Meanwhile, the smell keeps talking, very simply. Do it. You support the works. Albert runs his finger along the drawings at night, asking exact questions. How many bricks? How many men? How will you vent the pipes? Bazalgette answers in numbers and lines. It is a language Albert loves. When the building begins, London becomes a city of holes. Men in boots and caps stand chest-deep in trenches, passing bricks hand to hand, laying curve upon curve tunnels as smooth as shells. Pumping stations rise like temples to water and steam, and then, one day, the system works. Rain falls, and for the first time in London's long story, the filth goes away from homes. In the years that follow, cholera fades. Fewer children die of water they cannot see. People say it is a miracle. It is not. It is good planning, hard work, and a queen and her husband saying yes to the right people at the right time. You stand on the new embankment in a grey dress and watch the river slide. Under a sky rinsed clean by rain, gas lamps line the walk. Children chase one another. A woman leans on the rail and feeds a toddler a heel of bread. Somewhere downriver, a pump sighs on, then off. Like a great city breathing in its sleep, Albert slips his arm through yours. Sometimes, he murmurs, progress is not a shout. It is a drain that does its job. You laugh, and the sound surprises you both. There has been so much smoke, so many reports, so many funerals for children you never met but mourned in private. Laughter feels like proof that work can make light. What you carry forward in these years, you learn the rhythm of a modern crown, to see, not just be shown, to listen longer than pride wants, to bend when the law is wiser than your feelings, to press when compassion is stronger than custom, to find the engineers and nurses and teachers and give them room to build. You also learn that a queen is still a human body, often tired, sometimes afraid, not always kind, but able if she wilt say sorry, to say help, to say do it at night. After audiences and lessons with the children and a last round of papers, you meet Albert by the fire. He passes you a cup of tea. You pass him a blue book full of figures. He draws a diagram on the blotter of a sewer arch or a schoolroom window. You draw a small Christmas tree next to it and write the names of the children on the branches. Vicky, Bertie, Alice, Alfred, Helena. The tree is crowded. So is your life. Outside, the world is still racing forwards, stitching towns together. Telegraph messages running like lightning. Photographs catching faces that once lived only in memory. Inside, you and Albert try to make the race mean something. Safer mills, cleaner streets, rooms full of light where the poor can read. You think of that girl in the mill with the rag in her hair. You do not know her name. You hope she is taller now, and her lungs are clear, and her hands tie ribbons for her own child's hair, not threads for a machine. The lamp burns low. Albert closes his notebook. He looks tired. You reach for his hand, and hold it a little longer than usual. For no reason you can name, only a quiet warning from your heart that nothing built by love is guaranteed. Tomorrow, you kiss his knuckles. He smiles, the small, shy smile he kept from the boy he once was. The house sleeps. London sleeps. For a moment, the whole restless century seems to rest. Autumn slips into 1861. The leaves at Windsor turn copper and fall. Albert works late over papers, schools, drains, barracks. The exhibition's legacy, his fine hands moving with calm purpose. He looks pale. He says he is a little tired. He always says that. He hates to worry you. There is also Bertie, your son, your heir. He is handsome, lazy, charming, and wild at the edges. At army camp he behaves like a boy who has never seen a fence he will not climb. The newspapers hint at scandal. Albert travels in cold rain to speak to him man to man. He returns, soaked and shivering. The cough grows. A fever comes. Doctors press fingers to Albert's thin wrist and look at each other over your head. They order the windows closed. They pile more blankets. They whisper old words. Putrid fever. Typhoid, we think. No one can be sure. There are no antibiotics. There is only prayer, soup, and guesswork. You will not leave his side. The room is too hot. A tray sits untouched with beef tea and quinine. The curtains shut out December light. You dip a cloth in ice and press it to Albert's forehead. You hold his hand. When he sleeps, you read to him. When he wakes, you smile. Even when fear makes your stomach hollow, he tries to soothe you. My precious little wife, he murmurs, voice hoarse, you must not worry so. Your daughters move like soft ghosts outside the door. Bertie is kept away. The doctors say the strain would harm the prince, and you do not trust your temper. In the quiet hours you pray aloud, and then under your breath, small words breaking on your tongue like waves. December 14th. Evening. The clock in the tower counts the minutes with cruel certainty. Albert remembers bits of Schubert and asks for a hymn. You sing very softly. Candles throw gold light on his face. For a moment his eyes are clear and full of the old gentle mischief. He draws breath, another, fainter than none at all. The room does not move, but the world falls away. You are 42. He is 42. You write later with a hand that will not stop shaking. My life as a happy one is ended. The house of mourning the next day begins the rest of your life. You order black, not for a month, not for a year, for always. You put away colors, jewels, bright things that once made you laugh. Your heart is a bell with the clapper torn out. It can only remember its old sound. Albert's rooms must remain exactly as he left them. Hot water will be carried there each morning for his shaving. His clothes will be laid out. His pen will stay on the desk. No one is to move his watch. At Osborne, at Windsor, at Balmoral, every mirror of your life reflects a space that belongs to him. You withdraw. You work, yes, you always work. Red boxes arrive. You read. You sign. You send back notes in a neat, small hand. But you do not open Parliament. You do not stand on balconies. You do not walk the streets where people cheer at first the nation understands the widow's pain is holy. The newspapers print black borders. Churches are full. But grief is slow and people are not. After months, then years, the patience fades. What does she do? A paper asks with cruel curiosity. Where is the Queen? Some whisper Republic. Others hiss Mrs. Brown. You have not met John Brown yet, but rumors are quicker than truth. You keep reading the papers. You keep working. And at night, when the house is quiet and your children have gone to bed, you sit alone in a room too large for one person and write in your journal. To him, I speak to you constantly. I listen for your step. A country of grief, you are not the only one keeping watch for someone who will not return. Death is a hard neighbor in Victorian streets. Cholera, typhoid, consumption, scarlet fever, names that sit like stones in mothers' pockets. Families lose babies, sons, sisters. They do not hide death. They invite it into the parlor and give it a chair. A strange comfort grows from this pain. People learn to do sorrow, not just feel it. Mourning rules take shape like a map through the dark. For a husband, a widow wears full mourning doll black crepe, a heavy veil, jet jewelry for 2 years or more. Friends send black-edged calling cards. Households lower the curtains. Mirrors are covered. Clocks are stopped at the hour of death. Poor families do what they can. They dye one dress black, patch it until the patches fray. They save pennies for burial clubs, terrified of a pauper's grave. Many take post-mortem photographs of their dead, sometimes the only picture they will ever own. To our later eyes, these images look eerie. To them, they are proof that love existed and still exists. You do not need these guides to tell you how to mourn. You invent your own religion of grief. You make your homes into shrines. You bring the children to Albert's rooms and speak about him as if he has just stepped into the corridor and will return if everyone is very quiet. John Brown at Balmoral, where the hills smell of heather and rain, a Gilead Highland with your pony at dawn. He is John Brown. He is tall, broad, sunburnt, and not afraid of queens or ghosts. He speaks plainly, like a man cutting bread. Your Majesty will take the air. He says one morning when you hesitate at the door, I am not inclined, you answer. With respect, ma'am, the hills say otherwise. He puts a plaid around your shoulders himself and clicks his tongue to the pony. You allow it because something in his rough kindness makes breathing easier. Brown does not flatter. He does not fidget. He walks beside you in silence when silence is needed. He scolds you, sometimes, like a nurse scolding a child. Eat, he says, handing you a biscuit when your hands shake. Sit when you insist on standing for hours at a grave. Home, when the light fades and the path is bad. You laugh again, but privately. The household hates his freedom. The press invents a nickname, Mrs. Brown, to sting you back into the public eye. You do not explain yourself to gossips. You write in your journal that Brown is invaluable. With Brown's steady arm, you begin to appear once more. Not often, not brightly, but enough for people to see a small woman in black moving with purpose, and to remember that the crown is occupied. 2 men in a crown politics does not pause for sorrow. Prime ministers change like weather. 2 men will shape your late middle years. Mr. Gladstone is a preacher in a statesman's suit, earnest, moral, correct. He lectures you on duty. He brings long papers and expects you to accept them because they are good. He makes you feel like a girl at a sermon who cannot ask questions. Mr. Disraeli is a magician in a minister's coat, sparkling, bold, always with a flower in his buttonhole and a phrase in his pocket. He calls you fairy and tells you stories of power like fairy tales with laws tucked inside. You do not dislike Gladstone. You do adore Disraeli. He flatters. Yes. More importantly, he listens. He sends novels with notes. He brings ideas with ribbons on them. One day he brings you a crown from across the world, an idea made into a title. Empress of India. You are already queen, he says softly, eyes alight. But the jewel of the empire should name its sovereign. The people there must know you see them. You think of maps turned red. You think of princes who kneel before your portrait and peasants who never will. You think of the railways across the subcontinent, the famines, the courts, the schools. The soldiers who sail from Bombay to die for a London no one in their village can imagine. I will take the title, you say at last. And the responsibility, there will be time later to walk among the Indian tents at your jubilees, to learn Urdu phrases from a new servant, Abdul Karim, to insist that those who serve you from India be treated with respect inside your own household when others will not. But that is a later page. A nation learns to live with loss. Your private grief spreads like ink through public life. It changes fashion, black crepe, jet brooches, veils. It changes business. Undertakers become professionals with glossy hearses and plumed horses. It changes language. Deepest sympathies becomes a phrase on cards by the dozen. It even changes science, because death has forced people to ask hard questions. In hospitals, a quiet man named Lister washes his hands with carbolic and watches wounds heal that used to rot. In nursing, Florence Nightingale insists on clean beds, fresh air, numbers. In sick rooms, Chloroform hushes pain in childbirth as it once hushed yours. In drawing rooms, people turn to spiritualism, table turning, faint knocks. Mediums who claim to carry voices through the veil. You are curious but careful. Comfort is a warm thing. Charlatans are cold. You keep your faith simple and your mourning exact. Yet after the first heavy years, grief becomes something else. A stone on your chest, but a weight you can carry. You still wear black. You still keep his rooms, but you walk more. You open hospitals and schools. You hold small hands and accept bouquets from children who stare up at your veil and see not a queen, but someone who understands what it is to miss a person so much your bones ache. When John Brown dies in 1883, the old pain breaks open again. You order a small statue. You keep his photograph where only you can see it. The household clucks. The newspapers hiss. You do not explain. Some loves are for public history. Some are for a widow's quiet heart. The room with the lamp years turn. Like pages, your children are grown. Vicky writes from Germany with news of babies and politics. Bertie grows heavier and easier, still too fond of pleasure, yet learning the craft of kingship by watching you write, read, and endure. Alice will break your heart. Leopold will too. You become so many things at once, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, that newspapers begin to call you the grandmother of Europe. You still sleep in black. You still end each day with the same simple ritual. A lamp on the desk, a pen, a page. Saw the children in the gardens. Read with the Prime Minister. Disagreed, but was heard. Wrote to the Viceroy about schools. Thought of my angel. Always of my angel. Sometimes, on very clear nights, you wake and are certain you hear his step in the corridor at Osborne, that quick, light tread you knew as well as your own breathing. You sit up, the room is still, the fire hums softly. You lie down again and press your palm to the place beside you where his hand used to warm the sheets. You have not given the nation the show it wanted after 1861, no glitter, no endless parades, but you have given it something else. Constancy, a steady pen, a steady presence, a steady grief that taught a restless age to look its losses in the face and keep building. Outside your window the century runs faster, telephones buzzing, electric lamps sparking, omnibuses rattling down new boulevards. The young laugh more, easily, and dress in lighter colors. Good. Let them. You blow out the lamp. In the brief darkness before sleep, you see your life like a simple drawing, a small figure in black holding a very long line. At the far end, you feel a familiar pull, gentle as a hand. Tomorrow there will be letters from India, a quarrel between Gladstone and Salisbury, a grandchild to cuddle, a widow to comfort. Tomorrow there will be work. There is always work, but tonight, you say, in the privacy of a heart that learned how to break without breaking the crown. Good night, my dearest Albert. I will see you when I can. Maps on the walls of government rooms glow with red. Red for ports, red for islands, red for lands that feel close on paper and impossibly far when you stare at the sea. In 1876, your Prime Minister Disraeli brings a bright, troubling gift wrapped in flattery, a new title for an old crown. Empress of India. India is the jewel, ma'am, he says softly. Let the jewel name its sovereign. You think of princes and peasants you will never meet, of railways crossing heat-shimmered plains, of famines, schools, courts, and regiments that drill at dawn. Titles are easy, people are not. Still, you say yes, and the title is yours. A year later, far away in Delhi, British officials and Indian princes gather under coloured canopies at a great darbar to proclaim it. Brass bands play, cannons speak. A portrait of you looks down as men bow to a face that will never feel the dust of that field. At Windsor, the news arrives by telegraph in seconds. A clerk taps a key, a needle jumps. A message crosses oceans along a slender wire laid in the dark. The world is suddenly both huge and small. The moon sheathen, a gentler arrival. It is 1887, your golden jubilee. 2 Indian attendants come to serve at court. One is tall, calm, curious. His name is Abdul Karim. At first he is only a waiter. Then, one afternoon, he shows you a neat page of Urdu. The script curves like vines. He pronounces a phrase and waits. You try it. You get it wrong. He grins, not mocking, just happy you tried. Shabash, ma'am, he says softly. Well done. You ask for lessons. He becomes your munshi, your teacher. In the mornings, he reads to you. He tells you about Agra and Jabalpur, about mango season and monsoon rain hitting a courtyard like a drum. He explains small things, how cardamom smells in hot milk, how to tie a turban, why a good story begins with a prayer. The household hates. It's some sneer, some whisper ugly words behind doors. They do not like his skin, his language, his rise. You write firm notes in your small, exact hand. The munshi will be treated with respect. The Queen commands it. You learn polite greetings, small letters in Urdu, the shape of another world. It does not make the empire simple or clean. It makes it human. That matters. Across the empire 3 windows, Bombay, 1880s. A clerk named Rafi stands on a station platform in the early heat. A steam train pulls in and exhales. He checks his pocket watch, steps into a wooden carriage, and sits beside a soldier with dust on his boots. Outside the window, the city blurs. Mills, docks, temples, tea stalls. Rafi balances a ledger on his knee and practices English numbers. At the office, he will take shipments, write receipts, and, before noon, send a telegram, a priver, cotton, short. Price is rising. The message will reach Liverpool the same day. He has never seen England, but he can feel its tug along iron rails and copper wire. Jamaica, after emancipation. Eliza cuts sugarcane under a white sun. Freedom came in 1834, but wages are thin and the field is the same. She hums a church hymn learned from a missionary woman who taught her letters with a slate and a smile. On Sundays, Eliza wears a blue dress, sits under a breadfruit tree, and reads the gospel out loud to neighbors who listen with their eyes closed. Her eldest boy talks of leaving for Kingston to drive a cart. Maybe he will buy boots. Freedom is only a door. You still need a road. Australia, a settler town. A merchant counts bales of wool in a shed that smells of lanolin and dust. He writes to his brother in Leeds about profits and a new house with a veranda. Downriver, an Aboriginal family watches strangers claim old hunting ground with ink on paper and men with rifles. A child hides behind a gum tree and hears the words civilize and progress. The century moves like a wagon. Someone always walks beside it in the dust. The empire is not one story. It is many rooms with walls too thin. You can hear your neighbor. You can also hurt them without seeing. Everyday Britain, 3 houses, 1. Evening A, working family, South London. Jacob returns from the gasworks, shoulders aching, clothes gritty. His wife has stew on the hob and a baby on her hip. On the table lies a newspaper, cheap and hot with ink, and a football fixture list. The boys can read now. School is not a maybe, but a must, since the Education Acts. The older lad works half days at a shop, and on Saturday, after overtime, they might catch a train to the sea. Brighton by dusk, fried fish in paper, wind like clean water on the skin. Jacob keeps sixpence in a tin for that trip. He keeps another sixpence for burial club dues, because old habits of fear die slower than cholera. A middle-class home Bayswater. Mrs. Davis rings the electric bell, and a maid appears. In the parlour, a single electric light glows, dear, a bit harsh, while gas still warms the rest of the house. On the mantel, a Kodak camera sits like magic. You press the button, we do the rest. The family will take it to Kew Gardens Sunday. Mr. Davis, a bank clerk, practices the telephone with his brother across town. Hallo, hallo. The line crackles. They laugh. The children copy. A map of Africa for school and argue about whether the underground smells worse than the omnibus. Their nursemaid, Mary, irons small shirts in the kitchen and hums a music hall tune she heard last Thursday on her half-day. A great house country. Footmen lay out silver for a dinner of 9 courses. The lady discusses a charity bazaar for a new hospital wing. The Lord writes to a minister about a canal concession in Egypt and to his tailor about a hunting coat. Their daughter reads Middlemarch in secret and tries a bicycle in the gravel drive when nobody is looking. The stable boy, who has never been to London, can list every stop on the Great Western Railway by heart. 3 houses, 1 empire, shared sky, different roofs, dot lights, wires, wheels. The last decades of your reign move fast. Railways have stitched the island together so tightly that time itself had to be standardized. Noon is noon, everywhere the same. Telegraph wires hang like metal cobwebs. Messages skip across oceans on submarine cables. The underground rumbles under London streets. In some carriages, gas lamps flicker. Soon, electric trains will hum where smoke once choked. Streetcars run, bicycles fly. A bold man in a noisy motorcar terrifies horses and thrills boys. In drawing rooms, phonographs play scratchy songs. In fairgrounds and halls, flickering moving pictures show a train arriving, sailors at play, a kiss. People gasp, then laugh at themselves for gasping. The future looks like ghosts on a white sheet and feels like a new kind of heartbeat. Not all. Change is metal and flame. Laws change too. Children's hours at the mill are shorter. Minds' acts keep little bodies out of tunnels. Public health officers, armed with bylaws and soap, knock at doors. Libraries open. Parks spread green over soot. On Saturday afternoons, football clubs gather crowds who shout themselves hoarse, then go home calm. And in December, something gentle happens in parlours all over Britain. Families carry in a tree and pin it with candles and sweets. This started with you and Albert, a German custom-made British by love and pictures in the paper. Now even small houses find room for a little fur on a table. The lights burn for an hour while everyone watches for fire and whispers carols. It is dangerous and beautiful, like much in this age. Grandmother of your pure children have children. Your lap fills with grandsons who tug your sleeve, and granddaughters who bring you crumpled flowers from the garden. They marry into houses across the continent, Germany, Russia, Greece, Spain. At Osborne, on summer afternoons, You sit with embroidery while small cousins play at war with wooden swords and paper hats, having no idea what the real kind will do to them one day. Your eldest grandson in Germany writes fierce letters. Your son Bertie at last learns steadiness. Your daughters manage palaces like complicated ships. You send advice, money, and scoldings in equal measure, then cuddle the babies until they sleep with their mouths open like tiny birds. You like this title. The papers give you Grandmother of Europe. It is warmer than Empress. To Jubilee's 1887, 50 years a queen. Crowds bloom like summer fields along the route. You ride past faces that have grown up under your picture, on coins, in classrooms, in post offices, smelling of paper and string. You wave with a small hand from a small body in a plain black dress. The cheer that rises is not for glitter. It is for endurance. 1897, 60 years. The Diamond Jubilee. London dresses itself in bunting and hope. Soldiers from India, Africa, Canada, Australia, New Zealand march in bright lines, turbans, kilts, khaki, black boots. A parade of the globe in one long breath. You cannot climb the steps of St. Paul's, so the service comes down to you. The clergy stand in the open air. The hymn rises into a sky full of cinders and sunlight. Later that night, beacons flare on hilltops from Cornwall to the Highlands. Sparks talking to sparks, a chain of fire across the island. You are 78. You smile and cry at once, then go home and drink broth and write 3 lines in your journal about the weather. The crowd and a little girl who handed you a posy with a note tied in ribbon. Please live forever. You think, I cannot. No one can. But perhaps the things we built will live a little longer. What the crown learned and what it costs by now, you have learned to be 2 Victorias at once. Victoria, the symbol still, steady, black-clad, a figure people can pin their feelings. 2, pride, comfort, anger, hope. Victoria the person, a woman who gets hand cramps from heavy pens, who misses the weight of Albert's hand on hers, who speaks Urdu greetings with care, who feeds dogs at tea, who loves the simple clack of knitting needles while a minister argues. About naval estimates, you have learned to bend without breaking, to say no when conscience is loud and yes when the law is clear, to let ministers govern and still matter, to see people others ignore, a factory girl, a nurse, an engineer with muddy boots, and give them room to work, to endure grief without making a country carry it for you forever, and to share enough of it that the country felt seen, that the empire marches. Trade ships plow, profit hums, but in quiet rooms the costs add up. Languages pressed thin, borders drawn. With rulers on maps, families moved like stones. You cannot undo the shape of your century. You can at least call for fairness where you find power willing to listen and hold your own household to that standard when it fails. Sometimes that is a lot. Often it is not enough. A winter light late in the 1890s at Osborne House, afternoon. Sun pools on the floor like honey. You move from desk to window, slower now. The moonshee reads a letter from India and smiles at your careful reply. In London, new electric lamps burn in long rows along the embankment where once the river stank. In Birmingham, a girl leaves a factory at sunset and boards a tram to night school. In Manchester, a boy kicks a leather ball through smoke and laughs, like a bell. You watch a grandchild toddle after a dog and think of a girl in a cold bed at Kensington. Fingers numb, heart stubborn. If you could speak to her, you would say, you will be lonely often. You will be loved deeply. Your no will save you. Your yes will build things. Keep a journal. Learn people's names. Eat the orange at Christmas. Hold the railing. And then let go. Outside, the century counts down. A new one waits with fresh machines and fresh mistakes. Inside, a queen in black turns another page. The sea is quiet outside Osborne. House, winter light lies low on the water like a thin sheet of silver. Inside, the rooms are warm, the carpets soft, the pens still heavy. You are old now, small in your chair, wrapped in black as always, with a white lace cap like frost on dark stone. Your hands still know their work. You sign papers. You read the red boxes. You ask questions in a dry voice that still makes ministers sit up straight. You sleep more. You wake to the tick of the clock and the far-off sound of gulls. The world has not slowed with you. In South Africa, the Boer War burns. Columns march, telegrams crackle. You visit the wounded when you can, a small figure at the end of long white wards. You send comfort, blankets, chocolate, words. It is not enough, but you send it anyway. At Osborne, the days have a gentle pattern. Dogs on the rug, a granddaughter's quick feet in the corridor, a maid pushing back the curtains so you can see the cold, bright sea. The Munshi Abdul Karim still reads to you soft Urdu syllables like water over stones. The household disapproves. You have never let disapproval rule your heart. You keep writing. The journal is thinner now. A few lines, the weather, a visit. A dream where you were young and Albert laughed in the next room. A slow narrowing sight fades a little. Hearing too. Your legs refuse long corridors. You take short drives in the grounds and breathe the sharp air. The doctor insists on tonics that taste like metal. You smile tightly and drink them like a schoolgirl taking medicine she does not want. Family comes more often. Bertie sits by the fire, heavy and careful, speaking softly about horses and ships and the new king's work that waits at the door. Daughters smooth the blanket on your knees. Grandchildren bring you squashed flowers and sticky kisses and the smell of the garden on their clothes. You press their hands and think of other small hands long gone. News still travels on wires to your desk. You read it all. You cannot cross oceans or years. You can still send yes, no, do it, not yet. A queen is never finished. With those four, the nights stretch. You wake and the room is too still. You say a short prayer. You whisper a name. You sleep again. January 1901, the weakness becomes a river you cannot ford. The doctor stands in the doorway and folds his hands. The household moves with the quiet speed of people in a church. The family gathers. Kaiser Wilhelm, the grandson with the sharp profile, comes. Bertie holds your hand. The room smells of beeswax and sea air. Curtains breathe in and out like a sleeping creature. You have left instructions. No black-plumed spectacle, not for you. White, you said white dress, white pall, white flowers. You have chosen small keepsakes to go with you. Albert's dressing gown, a plaster cast of his hand, a few private. Tokens the public will not understand a lock of John Brown's hair, a ring that mattered to you, and letters tied with ribbon. People will argue about these choices. Let them. Grief is not a vote. On the 22nd of January, as the low sun slips and the tide turns, you let your fingers rest, then open. The breath leaves like a bird from the hand. The room is very quiet. Outside, winter light keeps its promise over the Solent. Where 80-1 the last journey, the news runs along wires. In Bombay, a clerk pauses at his telegraph key and stares at nothing. In Jamaica, a minister reads the notice from the pulpit, and a woman in the back pew touches her child's hair and whispers, "Hush now." In Manchester, machines slow for a minute and a foreman takes off his cap. In London, gas lamps blink in the fog, and a newsboy's voice cracks on the word dead. Your coffin is closed with white, just as you wished. No lying in state in Westminster, no parade of sorrow around a glass case. You go from island to island deal of white to Portsmouth, then by rail through winter fields. People line the cuttings and bridges, breath smoking in the cold. Some cry, some simply stand bareheaded as the train slides by like a slow thought dot at Windsor. The gun carriage waits. The horses rear and refuse the traces, spooked by the weight and the noise. For a moment the procession trembles. Then sailors step forward, blue. Surge, steady hands, take the ropes. They pull you the rest of the way. A new tradition is born from a small act of muscle and nerve. They carry you to front. The doors of the royal mausoleum open. Inside, the air is cool and smells of stone and flowers. Albert is there, as close as the 19th century can make him. They lower you beside him, not a queen now, not an empress, just Victoria, wife. At last, in the place you had been walking toward since December 1861, the doors close. The voices die away. The century takes one step into silence. After you, a brighter room, a shorter season at word 7, is king. He opens windows you kept shut. The court grows social, again color, music, parties, fast talk, quicker laughter. Ties are loosened. Cigar smoke curls through late rooms. The Edwardian years will be short and shining like a coin flipped in sun. And then the coin will fall into a deep shadow no one yet imagines. Your children and grandchildren return to their countries and palaces. They send letters. They raise toasts. They quarrel. Some will face a war that eats maps for breakfast. For a little while, the world you leave them feels safe. It is not. That is the story of every world. Your household clears rooms. Papers are sorted. Some are burned. Abdul Karim is sent home. It is not kind, but it is what your family chooses. History is a long table with many hands moving plates. Not all hands are gentle. What remains 6 plain gifts, the century that bore your name does not vanish when you close your eyes. It leaves gifts, some bright, some heavy. They sit in our houses still. A crown that knows its place. You proved a monarch in a democracy can be steady, useful, above parties. The rule you kept to advise, to warn, to encourage us now, the spine of your job. It will outlast you because it makes sense. Clean water and honest drains. Sewers you blessed and engineers you backed gave cities lungs and stomachs. That does not kill, pipes that carry danger away. Millions live long enough to quarrel about other things because cholera does not have a key to their house. Children in school, not in shafts. The laws that grew in your time's mall at first, then stronger turned bare feet out of mines and into classrooms. Not every child, not every place, but enough to change the color of the future. A public that can look and learn. Museums and parks, libraries and galleries. The legacy of a glass palace and a prince who loved useful beauty. A coster's boy can stare at a Greek statue on his day off. A seamstress can sit under trees that belong to everyone. A faster world. Rails. Wires, cameras, lights. The shape of time itself, standard clocks. Timetables enters. the kitchen, distance shrinks, possibility grows. Messages travel in minutes, so do mistakes. That is the bargain. A language and a map stretched thin. The empire spread English, trade and law. It also drew borders with rulers and called it order. It built and it broke. Its marks remain in money, in schools, in wounds. Your title held both pride and pain. We live with both, the aftertaste of an age. Imagine, one winter evening in 1901, a girl in Leeds strikes a match and lights a new electric bulb. She laughs and claps her hands, and the room looks suddenly clean. On a Glasgow quay, a shipworker reads. A headline about your death folds the paper and stares at the lights in the water until they blur in Calcutta. A civil servant writes a note in clear English and flowing Urdu and wonders which future his son will choose. In Kingston, a widow adds a sprig of green to a white Sunday hat and hums a hymn she learned from a missionary and made her own. In Cairo, a boy watches a train pass and decides he will be an engineer, not a baker. He will build bridges. He will put his name on the wind. None of them knows you. All of them live in rooms your century helped to furnish. The small woman and the long line you began as a little girl in a cold room behind heavy curtains. You learned no when it mattered. You learned yes when it counted. You loved one man with your whole life. You buried him and kept going. You made mistakes and paid for them. You said sorry by doing better. You were not always warm. You were nearly always true to the work. In your last winter, if you could send one more note in your tiny hand, perhaps it would say, look after the drains, look after the children, keep the crown steady and the doors of the museum open. Be kind to the people who carry things. Remember that grief is not a weakness. It is proof that love did something real here. The sea outside Osborne keeps its slow count. The house is quiet. The lamp goes out, and still, across time, a city's lights hum. Telegraph wires sing like thin metal bees, and on 1,000 December evenings families gather around a small sharp tree and make a dark room gentle with tiny stars. The age named for you is over. Its echoes are not. Morning light falls on Buckingham Palace again, but you are gone. A new hand opens the red boxes. A new voice says yes, no, not yet. Your son is king now, Edward the Seventh round. Cheerful, fond of parties and fast talk. People say the court can finally breathe. Curtains are tied back. Orchestras play. Late, the air smells of cigars and perfume. Newspapers call it the Edwardian Age. For a short while, Britain looks like a painting in gold. Hats grow taller. Trains run smoother. Dinner tables shine. In London, long avenues stretch under even rows of lamps. In country houses, weekends fill with motors that cough and roar, bicycles that fly, picnics on clipped lawns. In city streets, cinemas open dark rooms where light itself tells stories. People sit together and gasp at a flickering wave, a kiss, a train that seems to drive straight at the screen. Outside, a boy sells chestnuts from a hot pan and watches the crowd go in and out with shining eyes. He will go inside one day. For now he listens to the little cries that come through the door when the film surprises everyone at once. But the gold has shadows you cannot miss. Votes for women. Bread for workers on a cold street in Manchester. A woman pins a sash across her coat. It reads, Votes for Women. Her name is Emmeline Pang. Along with her daughters and many brave friends, she builds the Women's Social and Political Union. They begin with meetings and leaflets. When nobody listens, they change the music. Windows break, letters burn. The police drag women by the arms. The women come back. In prison, they refuse food. Doctors force tubes down their throats. The newspapers mock, then stare, then cannot look away. In factories and docks, men march to. They want better pay, safer hours, a fair share of wealth that seems to fly past them into other pockets. A small, sharp Welshman, David Lloyd George, speaks of a people's budget and insurance for sickness and old age. The arguments shake. Parliament, at last, new laws arrive. The poorhouse loses its iron grip, and the state begins to say, "We will not let you starve when work or health fails you." It is not enough, but it is a map. At home, a housemaid named Mary still rises in the dark to scrub steps with cold water. She has half-day Thursday. She keeps a book hidden under the bunker slim volume of poems and a detective story, passed from friend to friend until the spine breaks. She reads by candle, then by gas, then by a single bright electric bulb that clicks like a tiny thunder when it comes alive. Her wages are small, her dreams are not. She wants a little room of her own and a job where nobody clicks their tongue at her mistakes. She wants to vote. Miracles we keep, warnings we miss. In 1903, two brothers in America fly a machine heavier than air. It is small, made of wood and fabric, and it stays up only heartbeats at a time. But the sky never closes again. A man in France floats over fields in a balloon with a motor and comes back smiling like a child. Engineers sketch ships, taller than churches, and say unsinkable out loud. April 1912. A great white ship named Titanic leaves Southampton like a moving palace. She has electric light, warm baths, soft carpets, and a band that plays lilting songs. 4 days later, she hits ice in the dark, and the sea takes her in a few cold hours. In a tiny cottage in Belfast, a shipwright folds the paper in his hands and stares at the stove with dry eyes. A girl in New York waits in a crowd for a name that never comes. A priest in Queenstown speaks prayers into cold morning air. The lesson is very old and very simple. Water is stronger than pride. We learn it, we forget it, we learn it again. In India, a thin, quiet lawyer called Mohandas Gandhi returns from South Africa. He wears simple cotton and speaks softly about truth and non-violence. People laugh, then they listen. He walks, he writes. He is only one man, he is not alone. The powder trail across Europe on maps. Empires touch, like glasses on a crowded tray. British, French, German, Russian, Austro-Hungarian. The edges grind. In drawing rooms, men with fine cuffs discuss alliances like chess moves and treat human lives as numbers on a board. In Sarajevo, a short summer drive ends with gunshots. A prince falls. The tray tips. August 1914. A crowd in London sings in the streets. Nobody knows what they are singing toward. Trains fill with laughing boys who say, "The war will be over by Christmas." Mothers iron shirts very smooth and say nothing as they pack them. In factories, women tie their hair up tight and step to the machine. They make shells and bandages. They drive trams. They do 1,000 jobs men once said they could not do, and do them well. The world does not stop. It rearranges itself. Then the letters begin to arrive. Private Tom, missing. Lieutenant James, killed in action. Gunner Singh, brave conduct. Did not suffer long. Families read these words under weak lamps and learn to fold grief into the shape of a day. At the front, the earth becomes a mouth that eats. Mud climbs to the waist. Lice bite. Gas slinks low over the ground like a yellow fog and fills the lungs with fire. A young man writes a poem in a dugout and hides it in a tin. He wants his mother to know he saw a skylark rise over the wire, and for one breath the world was clean. In a hospital tent, a nurse holds a stranger's hand and calls him by his name until the pain passes, or he does. She is 24 and has learned more about blood in 6 months than most men will learn in a lifetime. By 1918, the shouting stops. Armistice, bells ring. Men shake hands with tears on their faces, and nobody laughs at them. They walk home past broken doors and try to learn how to live in rooms where the absent are so large the chairs seem to bend. Around them, then a new enemy arrives with no uniform and no face. Influenza, it crosses oceans faster than ships. It kills the young with a speed that feels like a trick. In a single winter, the world counts its dead again. The house that changes shape after the war. Old things crack. Great estates sell land to pay taxes. Footmen find work elsewhere. Servants leave and do not come back. A girl who drove an ambulance in France is not going to pretend she cannot drive. A motorcar in Kent. A boy who learned to fix engines for the army opens a garage with his brother. People wear simpler clothes. Jazz arrives like quick weather and makes feet disobey stiff rules. Cinema grows bolder. Screens show kisses with heat in them, not just politeness. An actress with a sharp bob and a softer smile looks straight at the camera as if to say, "I know you. Do you know yourself?" Politics bends to 1918. Parliament opens the ballot to all men over 21 and too many women over 30. The line outside the schoolroom on election day includes grey heads and young faces, and a few women who stand very straight in their best hats, holding babies on their hips. In 1928, the gate opens wider. Women 21 and over can vote too. Some of the first voters remember watching you, short and steady, roll past in a black carriage. They mark their paper and smile. It took a century to move the pencil this far. In Ireland, the long pain becomes guns and then a treaty. The island is cut. A new free state rises in the south. The north remains in the United Kingdom. The wound will take lifetimes to scar. Across the empire, pressure grows. In Amritsar 1919, soldiers fire into a peaceful crowd in a walled garden. The story runs. Bitter along wires and shadows the Roj. In Africa, men and women speak into the wind of freedom, then into unions, then into microphones. The map you left behind will not hold its shape. One day the red will drain from it like dye from cloth, and new colors will rise, bright and difficult. At home, a new voice crackles from boxes in sitting rooms. 1922, the BBC speaks, news, music, cricket scores, a bedtime story. Across 1,000 streets, people lean closer to a wooden cabinet and share a single voice. The country, for a few minutes each night, is one room. Echoes of your century walk with me through one ordinary day somewhere in the 1920s. Morning in Leeds. A man in a small terrace house turns a tap and clean water runs, fast and cold. He thanks no one. He is late for work. He does not know the name Bazalgette. He does not need to. That is how good works live. In Glasgow, a girl puts on a dress she stitched herself on a singer and pins a brooch made from black jet her mother wore for mourning. She is going to the pictures with friends. They will gasp and laugh and cry, And afterward they will walk home fast, because the air is sharp, and they feel like running. In London, a librarian unlocks doors to a free library built with money from men who once bought and sold the world, and decided to give some of it back. A dockworker chooses a book about ships. A seamstress takes a love story with a brave heroine and no prince. A boy chooses a book of inventions and decides to become an engineer, not a foreman. In Bombay, a student reads a pamphlet by Gandhi in a college courtyard and thinks about salt and law and what it means to obey and disobey. In Nairobi, a clerk copies forms in English and whispers his own language to himself so he does not forget the taste of it. In Dublin, a woman votes and then goes home to make tea with hands that shake a little from pride. They are all living. In the house your century built, pipes beneath, schools on the corner, parks for air, museums for wonder. Wires above, rails below. The roof is odd in places. Some rooms are too small. Some doors are locked and need keys that have not been cut. But it is a house, and it breathes. What we carry forward from part 1 to now, we watched a girl be caged, then crowned. We watched a marriage that made work lighter and sorrow bearable. We watched sewers and schools make cities kinder. We watched a city stink itself into wisdom. We watched glass become a palace for everyone. We watched love end and a widow teach a country how to walk with grief without stopping. After you, we saw flash and laughter and a war that taught us how thin the floor under our feet can be. We saw a vote placed in a woman's hand and a wireless voice enter every home. We saw an empire stretch and then begin, slowly and loudly, to let go. If your age left a sentence on the door for us to read as we go out, perhaps it is this: build boldly, cleanly, and for everyone. Hold power lightly and law faithfully. Learn fast from pain. Make rooms full of light. And when the map changes, it always will remember the people who live between the lines. Night comes. Someone turns a switch and a street blooms with electric stars hung at human heights. A child presses her face to the glass of a toy shop and sees a tiny train running. In a circle, round and round, never tired. She laughs. Her mother lifts her up. Tomorrow, the shopkeeper will place the train in paper and string. One day, the child will ride a real train to a real new life and remember this window full of small light. The age named for you ended in 1901. Its story keeps walking into our kitchens, our wires, our words, our winter trees. We still live with its brilliance and its faults, and every time we choose clean water, open schools, honest drains, fair laws, and better rooms, we ring, softly, a little bell that carries your name. Fog on the Thames again. Not the yellow killer of the 1850s cleaner, now but the kind that makes lamps glow like moons. Britain walks out of the bright Edwardian party into a hard new morning. The year is 1929. Markets crash in far-off rooms and the shock crosses the wires. Pay packets shrink, shops shutter. Men stand in lines that move too slowly. The word dole becomes part of family talk. On a raw day in 1936, men from Jarrow march all the way to London. Boots thin, banners simple, work. People hand out tea and apples along the road. The marchers do not break windows. They keep walking. Parliament listens politely, then moves on. Still, Britain has seen itself in a mirror. Brave, tired, proud, hungry. Across the Channel, worse weather gathers. Brown shirts parade in Germany. Black shirts swagger in Italy. In Spain, war begins, and young Britons go anyway, against orders poets, dockers, students carrying second-hand rifles and first-hand courage. Newspapers argue about appeasement. Wireless sets speak in careful voices. The calendar turns and the page tears. 1939, when the lights go out. September 1939. The Prime Minister's voice comes through the radio, flat as iron. We are at war, air raid sirens cry. Children with labels on their coats and gas mask boxes around their necks step into trains to the countryside. Mothers wave and keep waving after the train is gone, hands still moving in the air like flags that forgot the pole that at Dunkirk. The army stands with its back to the sea and is not lost because a nation puts out its boat stugs, yachts. Ferryzand brings its sons home across a grey, angry channel. We shall fight on the beaches, a gravel voice promises over the wireless. And in tiny kitchens, women nod at the sink, sleeves wet, face set. Then the Blitz. London burns and does not break. Underground platforms become bedrooms. People sleep under posters that read, "Keep calm and carry on," and they do. Fire wardens run toward glow, not away. A milkman, next morning, picks his way through rubble and hangs bottles on what is left of a railing. Tea is poured even when the cups rattle. Britain does not stand alone. The war is global this time, not in name but in fact. Indian soldiers fight from North Africa to Italy. West African divisions push through jungle. Caribbean pilots fly for the RAF, their voices soft on the radio, their courage not soft at all. In a cold hut at Bletchley Park, young women and men in cardigans and secrecy break messages sent in machines that think they are clever. In factories, women rivet wings and balance shells with steady hands. In fields, the land army cuts hay under a high sky and learns the names of birds. There is darkness you cannot bomb. Cattle cars in the east. Smoke that means more than any city fire ever meant. When the camps open, the world will have to learn a new word for evil and keep it. June 1944, the Channel fills again. This time on purpose ships, men, maps, prayer. D-Day lands. May 1945, the sirens are silent for good. VE Day erupts. Strangers kiss in Trafalgar Square. A girl dances with a policeman. Both laugh like children who stayed up too late. In windows across the country, blackout curtains come down, and light spills into streets that have not seen it freely for years. Then a new enemy from nowhere. Influenza in 1918 taught its lesson. Now, in 1945, the cost is counted in empty chairs and folded uniforms. In nightmares, in quiet men who stare too long at fences, in women who sleep with the light on. 1945, building a kinder country after victory. The question is not what did we win, but what will we build? A small, determined man Clement Attlee forms a government that speaks in calm words and big plans. The idea is simple and huge. A state that helps from cradle to grave. 1948, the National Health Service is born. On the first day, doctors' surgeries fill with people who have waited years. A miner with a bad chest. A child with a deaf ear. A mother who has ignored her own pain. Treatment is now not about money first. It is about need. The waiting room breathes out. Insurance and pensions expand. Council houses rise from bomb sites, Fred brick gardens, indoor baths. New towns Harlow, Stevenage promise a fresh start with light, air and bus routes that make sense. Coal, rail, steel key. Industries come under public hands, to steady the ride. Festival of Britain, 1951. A bold splash of tents, towers, sculpture on the south bank says, "We are tired, yes. But look, we can imagine again. Children eat ice cream by the river. Their parents look at a model kitchen that has drawers, which open smoothly, and dream about buying one someday." The empire changes. Color empires do not end on one day. They end like winters slowly, then suddenly. Then you realize the daffodils were always going to push through. The first great thaw is India, 1947. Independence. Two nations, India and Pakistan, are born in the heat. Partition slices the map. Trains fill with people moving toward a home they have never seen. Lines of refugees stretch to the horizon. There is joy and there is blood. Gandhi carried his fight with bare feet, and stubborn truth is shot the next year. The world stands still for a minute and then keeps walking a little more quietly elsewhere. Ghana steps forward in 1957. Others begin to plan, to march, to sing freedom into being. In 1956, a canal in Suez becomes a mirror. Britain sees a world where its old reflex moves gunboats. Deals, speeches no longer decide the ending. The lesson is clear and stings. The map has changed. Power has new addresses. Windrush and a wider home, June 22, 1948. The ship Empire, Windrush docks at Tilbury. Nearly 500 passengers from the Caribbean step onto a grey English morning with good suits, warm smiles, and careful hopes. They fought in the war, some of them. Now they will drive buses, nurse the sick, lay tracks, teach children, build houses, write poems. The signs in some windows say no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. They see them. They keep going. In a hospital ward, a Jamaican nurse changes a dressing and hums. In Brixton, a Trinidadian mechanic opens a small garage. At a summer fair, someone brings a steel pan. It sings like sunlight. The first threads of Notting Hill Carnival twist through a street where, not long after, there will be a riot. Then, years later, joy again. Britain, slowly, learns new rhythms. A cup of tea remains a cup of tea. It is poured for more kinds of neighbors. Everyday 1950s. 3 rooms at dusk, one a council flat in Coventry. A mother lifts a kettle off a gas ring. Utility furniture sturdy, simple fills a clean room. The radio gives weather. A child builds a castle from Meccano and asks if rockets can go to the moon. The father comes home from the motorworks, hands black with the day. He washes in a white sink that was a dream to his own father. After tea, they take the pram to the park and listen to leaves. To a semi in Essex on Coronation Day, 1953. Neighbors crowd a small front room. A brand new television flickers black and white. A young woman with a solemn face wears a heavy crown. In Westminster Abbey, while millions sit on sofas and feel connected by a silver thread of signal. Sandwiches, plate, beer pulled, babies shushed. Outside bunting flaps, and someone's uncle tears up for reasons he cannot name. 3. A bedsit in Notting Hill. A new arrival from Barbados. Irons a shirt for his bus conductor shift. He reads a letter from home that smells of sun, then writes back about fog and friends and a church where the singing is different but God is the same. He learns the heat settings on a coin meter fire and where to find good plantain on Saturdays. Jet age. Code age. Teenage. Britain steps into the jet age. White-nosed planes lift from Heathrow and erase distance in hours. The first jet airliners are beautiful and At first, fragile. Engineers learn the hard lessons of metal, fatigue, and try again. On quiet campuses, the ghost of Bletchley turns into computers with valves that glow like tiny suns. Clerks become programmers. A new language is born from switches and logic. Code in back rooms and dance halls. Another invention, the teenager. After years of rationing, a pocket of spare money forms and flows into records, scooters, bright shirts, skiffle taps on washboards. Rock and roll arrives like a dare. On the seafront at Brighton, mods and rockers glare across a narrow cultural river. The newspapers panic. The kids go home sunburned and a bit proud of themselves. What the past still holds, the old gifts are. Still in the walls, turn a tap clean water. Step into a park, common green. Walk into a museum, free wonder. Take a pill from a white-coated hand there. NHS standing quietly between fear and night. A train pulls in. The timetable matches the clock. You get where you meant to go. Much that Victoria's century began drains, law, schools. Habit still hums below the floor, but the house is bigger now and louder. More people, more stories, more questions. Who gets to belong? Who gets to lead? What do we keep from the old house, and what do we gently carry to the skip? The answers will bend with each decade. The asking will not stop. A door opens to the 60s on a grey morning in 1960. A girl in Liverpool puts a needle on a record and hears a new sound, bright, quick, cheeky. For local lads are tuning up in a basement club. In Birmingham, a Jamaican sound system rattles a community hall. Bass makes the air thick and happy. In Leeds, a teacher unlocks a new comprehensive school and wonders if this will be the way. In Nairobi and Lagos, flags are stitched that will soon fly where Union Jacks once did. In Belfast, angry whispers begin to rise. History does not end. It remixes. You stand in the street at dusk. Lights come on, one by one. You can smell chips. Somewhere a television laughs. A bus sighs and kneels. A nurse in a blue dress with white cuffs steps off and walks home tired and useful, the way the best stories walk. You think of a girl in 1819 waking in a cold room behind heavy curtains, and you see her long line still running under your feet, through pipes and schools and lamplight, into this louder, wider, stranger Britain. A drum beat in a basement, a hemline that shocks a grandmother, a pill the size of a lentil that quietly detonates a century of habits. London, 1963. The city is humming like a transformer. On Carnaby Street, sleeves get shorter, colours louder. In the Cavern Club in Liverpool, 4 lads make a sound that feels like someone opening a window in a stuffy room. Teenagers spill into the street after the show, all grin, no coat, not caring that it's raining. The newspapers call it a youthquake. They're not wrong. Fashion moves like quicksilver, Mary Quant's miniskirts, Twiggy's eyelashes like painted. Feathers, suits, cut, slim, then wild. Hair that refuses to lie down. Inside chemists, another quiet revolution. The pill first for married women, then for more. For the first time, many women can plan their lives with a calendar and courage rather than luck and prayer. In Parliament, laws begin to catch up with life. 1967 brings partial decriminalisation of homosexuality in England and Wales. The Abortion Act brings legal, safer terminations. The Theatres Act ends censorship. The Race Relations Acts 1965, 1968 say you cannot refuse service or jobs because of skin. Imperfect, late, argued, but different. Football comes home. For a summer, 1966. Wembley, extra time. A ball like a comet under floodlights. A commentator losing his mind with delight. In living rooms across Britain, new televisions flicker. Neighbors lean in. Someone spills tea, nobody minds. Yet even as windows open, winds shift the map. The wind of change across Africa and Asia. Flags that were once folded in colonial. Drawers unfurl under their own skies. Ghana has already stepped forward, 1957. Nigeria, 1960. Kenya, 1963. In many places, the end is peaceful. Elsewhere, scars run deep. The empire drains color like dye from cloth. In its place rises the Commonwealth a looser table. Old tensions under new napkins. Britain changes at home to mills in Bradford, foundries in the Midlands, and hospitals across the country recruit workers from Punjab, Sylhet, Mirpur, Gujarat, Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados. In 1968, a politician's rivers of blood speech tries to make fear fashionable. Thousands answer with work, music, shop fronts, and stubborn neighborliness. Notting Hill Carnival grows from grief and defiance into joy. Friday night chip. Now take orders for Vindaloo. A corner shop becomes an altar to possibility. Fresh coriander, plantain, pickled onions, pay point dot. Then history shoves hard. 1972. Idi Amin expels Ugandan Asians. Families arrive with one suitcase and unbreakable habits of enterprise. Within a decade, factories, pharmacies, wholesalers, take away the difficult alchemy of starting again. Britain argues with itself and remakes itself at the same time. The Troubles, a long, hard midnight derby. 1968. A civil rights march is battened off a bridge, and the decade's light tilts toward Long Shadow. By 1969, British troops enter Northern Ireland. Some are welcomed, many are not. Streets sprout peace walls. Houses learn new rituals. Check under the car, choose a route, don't sit in the window. Internment comes. Bloody Sunday, 1972, leaves. White handkerchiefs stained dark. The funerals are a wound that doesn't close. Bombs in Belfast, in Birmingham, in London. Funerals in Catholic streets, Protestant streets, two griefs, one soil. Yet ordinary life refuses to die. A teacher marks. Spelling, a baker-proof spread. On a rainy afternoon, a mother explains to her child why their neighbor won't wave anymore and wishes she did not have to. Years stack. Hunger strikes 1981 thicken the air with sorrow. Diplomats grind language until it shines. Downing Street. Declaration, talks. Then, astonishingly, the Good Friday Agreement, 1998. Not an ending, but a hinge. Guns quieten, murals change. At a reception, an old woman in a green coat and a man who once ordered bombings shake hands. People watch and breathe out. The 70s, 3-day weeks and new riffs the gold of the 60s tarnishes. Oil crisis 1973, inflation like a spilled pot. The 3-day week dimming bulbs. The winter of discontent 1978-79 piling uncollected rubbish like small monuments to exasperation. Yet culture keeps kicking. On a hot night in King's Road, a band that can barely play 3 chords teaches the country to shout, punk. Violent joy for kids without a future brochure. In Coventry, two-tone mixes ska and punk into anti-racist dance music. In Brixton, Sound systems teach bass to vibrate brick. In Sheffield, synths bloom from factory dust. Politics shifts tectonic plates. 1979, Margaret Thatcher arrives with a handbag and a crete. Privatize, deregulate, confront. Coalfields and shipyards are not spreadsheets, they are towns. The miners' strike 1984-85 becomes a moral weather report. Picket lines like ribs. Against sky, police horses, the long grief of closed pits. Some places find new industries. Others develop a silence you can hear from the train dot abroad. The Falklands War 1982 flares and ends quickly. Flags wave, doubts linger. The dead stay. Dead, at home, AIDS hits. Fear and cruelty arrive first, then activism, science, and a different kind of courage quilts, sewn by tired hands. Leaflets passed on night buses, nurses who do not flinch. Section 28, 1988, tries to erase people. They refuse to vanish. The 90s, cool, cold, and carefully hopeful 1990. Crowds roar in Trafalgar Square against the poll tax. Within months, Thatcher leaves Downing Street. John Major's grey pragmatism follows. Black Wednesday 1992 teaches currency markets to bite. Then a rebrand Cool Britannia. Britpop turns guitars into flags. Young British artists, Pickle Shock. And sell it. Euro 96 gives pubs, anthems, and national therapy. 1997. Tony Blair rides a landslide, promising things that sound like they were polished last night. Modernization. Education, opportunity. The national minimum wage appears. Devolution gives Scotland a parliament and Wales an assembly. The Good Friday Agreement is signed. Men who wouldn't share a table share a sentence. A London summer evening in 2012 will later distill this mood. Opening ceremony, NHS nurses dancing, a queen who skydives on film, a giant baby. For a night, the country feels like it knows itself. But underneath the bunting, globalization's double edge, finance booms. Factories move, a call center opens, a steel plant shuts. A generation born after the mines closed grows up in retail, parks, and on PlayStations. In 2005, bombs rip through London on a Thursday morning. Strangers carry each other down smoke-filled tunnels, then go home and put the kettle on. Because this is what the island does when it hurts. 2008 brings the crash. Banks wobble. The state props them. Austerity follows with a clipboard. Libraries go quiet. Councils sell silver. Food banks replace the old shame of the workhouse with a new, softer shame. The 2010s, lines on a map and on a screen phones become pocket worlds. A bus ride is now news, music, and 100 opinions before the next stop. In homes, grandparents FaceTime toddlers who mash the screen with delighted hands. In city kitchens, Deliveroo bikes swarm like neon bees. In rural towns, broadband argues with HEDGEROWS.2016, a question that is really 10 questions, leave or remain, is put to the country. Friends fall out on Facebook. Families go quiet at Sunday lunch. Brexit wins. The pound lurches. Politics melts and refreezes. An old conversation about sovereignty, belonging, and borders becomes loud enough to wake the neighbours. Years of negotiation follow. The Union itself feels its seams. Scotland looks north to Europe. Northern Ireland studies customs posts like tea leaves. Wales clears its throat and speaks more Welsh on the radio. During it all, an old scandal teaches a new lesson. The Windrush generation, those who came when Britain asked are told. Decades later, they do not belong. Lives are appended by paperwork that doesn't recognize living memory. The nation blushes, then apologizes, then promises to do better. Some hurt cannot be invoiced. 2020 stops the clocks. A pandemic summons the ghost of cholera and gives it a mask. Streets empty. Birdsong gets loud. The NHS stands like a wall made of people. We lean out of windows and clap for nurses who are too tired to hear it. Parks become cathedrals. A walk becomes a pilgrimage. Grief fills rooms with no funerals. When the wave recedes, the floor is still wet. Every day now, 5 doorways at Dushka Tower Block lift in East London. A nurse in scrubs rides up with grocery bags. Her badge is smudged. Her smile isn't. She messages her mum in Lagos. Back late, yes I ate. Love you. On her day off, she sleeps until noon and waters basil on a narrow sill, a semi in Leicester. A grandma Skypes cousins in Mumbai while stirring dal. Her grandson teaches her to say "Hey Siri" properly. She teaches him to roll chapatis round. Outside, a fox inspects the recycling. A terrace in Port Talbot. A man locks his bike after a shift at the last big works. He can name steel grades, the way some people name roses. On weekends he coaches under-12s who run like they mean it and listen like they don't. A cottage on Skye. A woman edits code for a fintech firm 2 time zones away while the rain plays the old music on the roof. At lunch, she walks to a beach that has had the same argument with the wind since the Ice Age. A cafe in Belfast. 2 students, one from a Protestant family, one from a Catholic, one share chips and swap playlists. Trad, grime, K-pop, a rebel song their grandfathers would hate. They roll their eyes at flags and argue about housing. History did not end with Victoria. It moved into the plumbing. Drains, vaccinations, public parks, schools, timetables, her century's bones still hold up the day. We have hung new rooms. From that skeleton, wireless, fiber, satellites, streaming, fusion prototypes, even the polite tyranny of the group chat. We are wider, louder, kinder in places, sharper. A bell rings in September 2020 too soft first, then everywhere at once. Shop doors close halfway. Trains slow and hush. In kitchens and offices and school corridors, the same sentence crosses screens and lips. The Queen is dead. For 70 years. She had been there like furniture you never notice until you bump it in the dark. Elizabeth II, a constant in a fast river. Her face on money, her initials on postboxes, her Christmas voice working its way through paper hats and gravy. She remembered rations and coronation bunting and the first broadcast that looked like mist in a box. Most of the country had never sung a national anthem with any other name. Then, all at once, they did. Outside Westminster Hall, a queue grows like a river finding its old bed. It curls along the Thames by night and day. People bring flasks and biscuits and raincoats, trade stories and tea and painkillers. Strangers hold places while strangers fetch coffee, because a line is a kind of nation if you let it be. Inside, guards stand like chess pieces. The crown glows in a low pool of light. Shoes whisper. People bow or blink or do nothing and everything at once. Someone cries because their nan would have wanted to come. Someone touches the rail and pretends they didn't. Outside, the London Eye turns slow. Phones glow. The city remembers how to stand still. Operation London Bridge unfolds with the neat, Fussy grace of a country that still loves a schedule, muffled drums, black horses, a gun carriage, a hymn that turns the air into honey and ache. Across the kingdom, shop shutters wear black ribbons made of printer paper and tape. In Balmoral, the hills keep their counsel. And then, God save the king. A line bends and does not break. Charles III takes a pen that leaks, smiles a little tight, and starts work that has no job description beyond steadiness. Crown after crown, the new reign begins, not with a roar but with a long inhale. A winter of bills and boilers, of headlines that bite. Ukraine burns on the evening news. The price of heat climbs like mercury. The word inflation walks in like an unwelcome uncle and stays for tea. In a small terrace in Hull, a mother layers jumpers on children and sets a timer for the radiators. 20 minutes before bed, 20 in the morning. In Aberdeen, a wind technician clips onto a nacelle 200 feet above a cold, glittering sea and checks a gearbox that hums like a heart. In Cornwall, someone puts solar on a slate roof and does the maths twice and still says, yes, May 2023 brings a coronation that knows how to share the stage. There is gold and velvet, yes, and a crown that remembers hands no longer here, but there is also a gospel choir, a Welsh prayer, a woman carrying a sword with the calm of a lighthouse. Rain falls, people cheer anyway. An oat latte cools on a windowsill in Peckham while a toddler points at the TV crown and says hat. A pensioner in Presterton says the blessing out loud with the Archbishop and feels a line. Connect back to a black-draped day in 1952 when she was the toddler. Monarchy in a modern room is a question dressed as furniture. People ask it kindly, angrily, not at all. What is it for? The best answers are small. Service as a habit. Ritual that tethers us across floods. A face to hand a bouquet to when you have waited in the rain and just want to hand it to someone. The worst answers are loud and costumed. In the middle is the workroom being cuts and hospital wards, condolences in village halls, words written on dark days so someone who does not know you will feel a little less alone. The climate room. If the Victorian story was coal and steam, ours is carbon and heat. Rivers that once powered looms now overflow new estates. Moors catch fire in April. Thames barrier teeth rise more often. There is less weather and more pattern. Yet the island is busy with spanners and bets on the Dogger Bank. Turbines taller than cathedrals learn the dance steps of wind. Their blades smear clouds into lines only seabirds and engineers notice. In Teesside and Humber, people who can fix anything teach old refineries new names. Hydrogen, CCS, synthetic fuel. Skeptics watch with folded arms. Apprentices watch with open mouths. A lab in Culham sips at Fusion a Star in a bottle that always leaks, and yet the bottle is better this year than last. In Bristol, a startup fits heat pumps in Victorian terraces and discovers the gospel of draft-proofing. Salvation is often rubber and care. The work is practical and boring, the way roof beams are boring until the storm. We talk about 2050 as if it were a bus stop. It is not. It is a house we must build while living in it. The code, Rumonda floors, the Victorians gave us pipes, rails, wires and other net hums, fiber, 5G, cloud. A GP taps notes into a system that hates her and still saves lives. A farmer in Norfolk checks soil moisture on her phone and moves cows with a drone like a shepherd with an invisible dog. A teenager in Bradford trains a tiny AI model to write grime lyrics and then throws them away because his own are better. A lawyer asks a chatbot to draft a letter and spends the saved hour with his kid building a Lego dome that keeps falling until it does not. Artificial intelligence is the new railway. It moves faster than comfort and cheaper than caution. It promises a golden age and a derailment in the same breath. The old lessons return: standards before hype, safety before speed, equity before revenue. Also, the oldest lesson: new tools do not change what we are. They change what we can do about it. The cost of the room we live in, the NHS, the quiet wall between fear and dark creeks. Waiting lists stack like unread mail. A junior doctor counts night shifts on fingers and then on toes, and still runs out of toes. A matron fixes 3 problems with a look and a post-it. On a Friday, a ward celebrates a bell rung by a woman whose hair is growing back. Strangers clap as if she were their sister, because for a minute she is. Housing bends people out of shape. In Exeter, 5 graduates share a 2-bed and learn communal patience and earplugs. In Hebden Bridge, a carpenter measures a stair in a mill conversion and feels the pleasant ache of making a snug thing fit. In Newham, a family keys into a council flat with a clean bath and a small balcony where basil will grow. A plant on a sill is not policy, and it is also reason enough to smile all spring. Work is a strange animal, narrow-moat. Hybrid, gig, on-site, shift, side hustle. The week does not look like its Victorian grandfathers, any more than your phone looks like a telegraph key. Still, dignity wants the same food. Fair pay, clear hours. Say dot. The map and the room next door Scotland hums, with a question that refuses to get tired. Wales speaks more Welsh without asking permission. Northern Ireland balances a treaty like a tray of hot cups and, on most days, does not spill. England huge, various argues with itself about towns that feel ignored and cities that feel expensive, and fields that feel bought by someone else. Beyond the island, allies, entanglements, NATO, Commonwealth, trade deals that turn fish and data into paragraphs. The world shrinks and grows on the same day as our phones decide which headlines to serve with breakfast. 5 doorways. Right now a classroom in Wolverhampton. 28 faces, 14 languages at home, 1 whiteboard. The teacher draws a number line. A girl from Kharkov and a boy from Khartoum race to the right answer, and then help the room get there. On the wall, a poster of the water cycle. In the hall, a leaky gutter waiting for a grant. In the cupboard, glue sticks that never have lids. On the floor, new shoes, old shoes. A shoelace tied by a friend to a surgery in Fife. A GP looks at a screen that shows a list that never ends, and a blood pressure that finally drops. She prints a leaflet, then remembers nobody reads leaflets, and instead draws a sandwich on the back and talks about salt and sleep and walking by the river without headphones. 3. A lab in Cambridge. CRISPR cuts, proteins fold, a postdoc stares. Add a graph and suddenly understands something no one in the world did at breakfast. He makes a cup of tea and emails his supervisor, "Are you awake?" knowing she is never asleep. For a takeaway in Oldham, onion bodgies stack like small suns. A boy delivers to a cul-de-sac where a dog always barks and a grandmother always says, "Drive safe." He will. He is saving for a course in cybersecurity because his cousin said it's like being a bouncer for invisible doors. 5. A bus at midnight in Cardiff. A driver nods to a nurse, a chef, a cleaner, 2 students, and a man with a trumpet. The bus smells of chips and rain. Out of the window, a park that will be full of toddlers by 10. A statue nobody reads. A river that remembers Romans and floods and will still be here when we are not. what the Victorians left in our pockets. You turn your life inside out, you can still see their stitching. Timetables that mostly agree with clocks. Pipes that bring clean water and carry away what would make us sick. Schools that believe a child's head is public business. Parks where anyone can sit under a tree and be nobody for an hour. A civil service that keeps processes alive when politics catches cold. Habits queuing letters. How to disagree in committee without breaking the table. We added our own. Votes for women, the NHS, race equality in law, devolution, rights that fit modern pockets. We are still tailoring. The seam ripper is as important as the needle. The last page for now. Imagine this. It's December. In a terrace in Leeds, a family lifts a box that smells of dust and cinnamon. Out comes a trip elastic, but the lights are kind. Someone puts the star on top. Someone else complains the star is crooked. Someone else fixes it and makes it worse, and everyone laughs. In Birmingham, a Sikh family strings lights in their front window, because light is a good idea in any language. In Cardiff, a Somali nan fries sambusas while her granddaughter practices a carol for school. In Belfast, two lads who grew up on different sides of a wall share a taxi to a Christmas do and split the fare and do not talk about flags because they are busy talking about football and rent. In Glasgow, a woman walks home in a hat her mother once wore and stops on a bridge to watch the river pretend to stand still. What started with a girl in 1819, waking in cold air behind damask curtains, arrives here, a warm room, a cheap string of safe electric stars, clean water in the tap, a clinic on Monday for the cough, a train tomorrow if the forecast holds, a library card in a drawer, a vote in a pocket, a queue you can trust, a stranger who will hold the door because why wouldn't? They dot the work is not finished. The work is never finished. But the line from Kensington to Osborne to here is real and sturdy. It runs through drains and diaries, through Dash the Spaniel and Abdul Karim's Urdu lessons, through Bizoljit's bricks and Bletchley's cables, through copper and fibre, through coal and wind, through grief that taught a country how to stand and love that taught it why. Tomorrow will bring new tools, new weather, new arguments, new songs. We will do as we did. Learn, mend, build, share. And on some future winter night, someone will switch on a small tree in a small room, and the lights will come up, and that person will not think of Victoria at Orland. That too will be a kind of victory she would understand, a tradition so steady you do not need to name it to feel it. Dawn on the Severn, water shoulders past the banks, heavy and brown. At a village hall, kettles hiss, high-wheeze vests glow, and a paper sign says, tea toilets, towels. A farmer brings a tractor. A teenager brings phone chargers. A royal engineer shows people how to stack sandbags like bricks. Someone's spaniel escapes, swims a ridiculous, heroic circle, and climbs out, shaking triumph into the air. Someone laughs for the first time. In 2 days. Then they mop and carry on. Welcome to now and the years just ahead. The age that began when a fair-haired girl woke to cold air in 1819 has brought us here. An island that knows, drains and queues and quiet courage and must learn. Fast, 3 new arts. How to live on a warmer planet without leaving anyone behind. How to use clever machines without forgetting what human cleverness is for. How to keep rooms kind when money, maps, and moods keep changing. This is not prophecy. It's a tour of the next room with the light switched ONI repair. The climate we inherited and the one we choose, the Victorians mastered pipes. Our job is envelopes, keeping heat where it belongs and water where it doesn't. In Wigan, scaffold wraps a terrace like a present. Fitters tuck insulation into walls, swap out a rattling boiler for a heat pump, and seal letterbox drafts with a clever brush strip. The bill is part grant, part interest loan. The house is warmer by tea time, the gas meter surprised into silence. On the Humber turbines, taller than churches turn weather into wages. A welder who once built oil rigs trains to service gearboxes that hum like distant bees. He still takes pride in steel. It's just different steel now. In Somerset, farmers flood fields on purpose in winter wetlands as old technology with new reasons. Curlews return, so do frogs. A scientist with muddy knees measures carbon kept in mud like coins in a jar. On the Clyde shipwrights who could true a keel with their eyes fit battery packs and hydrogen lines into workboats. A tradition does not die. It changes tools. Climate work looks boring up close gaskets, grant forms, gutters. That's the point. Boring is how you win. One leaky window at a time, one safer floodplain, one bus lane that snips 10 minutes off a commute so someone leaves the car and never goes back. II sense. Machines that help without ruling under our feet, the Victorian network. Over our heads, the digital one. Between them, choices. A GP in Bristol opens a laptop. An AI suggests a possible diagnosis. The GP uses it like a bright junior. Good ideas, never the final word. She orders tests the model can't feel, listens to a story the model can't hear, and writes a plan a person can keep. A barrister in Leeds asks a large model for a first draft, then spends the saved hour with a client, not a thesaurus. The letter is better because the hour was human. In Milton Keynes, a warehouse learns to see in the dark. Robots fetch, people fix, a union organizes, a manager finally admits the rota was cruel and changes it. Progress is policy plus empathy, plus firmware updates. At Bletchley's, they're against collars, coders, and ministers argue about guardrails. It looks like a photo op. It is also the old British magic trick. Write standards first, then build inside them. Boring again and again the point. Rule of thumb for the code room, flows, not fireworks. Flow of data with consent. Flow of benefit to many, not few. Flow of time back to nurses, teachers, caseworkers. Time they spend as only humans can. Present. 3. Belonging who we are when rooms get crowded. A country is not only laws and numbers. It is rooms where strangers learn how not to be strangers. Friday night in Oldham, mosque emptying, pub filling, chippy booming. A police sergeant who grew up on this street chats with the imam about parking. The pub manager waves at both. Civic peace looks like this. Short conversations before trouble exists. Cardiff, summer. A food festival where Berra breath meets biryani. A choir sings in Welsh and Somali. The harmonies surprise everyone and then feel obvious. Glasgow, council chambers. A micro-grant scheme keeps a boxing gym, a sewing circle, and a youth orchestra alive for another year. These are not extras. They are bridges. Bridges stop, floods, too. Belfast, a cafe where the scones are excellent and the accents are mixed. The wall still stands a few streets over. Inside, too. Lads plan a startup selling smart beehives. They laugh about flags and change the subject to honey. Belonging is small work. Pronouncing names properly. Celebrating Diwali and Christmas on the same street. arguing hard without humiliation, making the library warm at 4 p.m. on a wet Tuesday, because that is when kids need ITIV care. The quiet wall between fear and night. The NHS turns 80 soon. Its best gift is the same as its birthright: access. In Sunderland, a new community diagnostic hub means scans without long journeys. A van parks outside estates on Thursdays, checks, smiles, referrals. Prevention is cheaper. More importantly, it is kinder. In Truro, carers trial a 4-day week with proper handovers and better pay. Falls go down, morale goes up. Someone finally writes this truth on a whiteboard. Care is not a cost, it is an engine. In Hackney, midwives use WhatsApp carefully to keep anxious mums close. In Hebrides, paramedics use satellite links when the weather laughs at masts. In both places, the rule holds: high tech, high touch. A hospice in Nottingham teaches the town to talk about death again, Victorian style, but with morphine and less fear. The good death is still a thing we can offer each other. Home, hand, hymns or none, no pain, no hurry. Earning work with dignity. The economy is not an index. It's people's weeks. A retrofit cause plumbers, sparkies, scaffolders, wins contracts street by street. Apprenticeships are gold again. Colleges hum at night with grown-ups learning new tools because tomorrow pays better if you can hold a wrench and an iPad at once. Creative clusters outside the capital: Belfast's film lots, Manchester's studios, Cardiff's sound stages, hire runners who become editors, who buy houses near the bus line and start football teams for their kids. Culture stops being an import. It grows on local soil. A foundry fund helps medium factories buy robots without shedding workers. The deal is simple: machines take strain, humans take quality. Output rises, backs hurt less. Profits are shared because that was the grant condition and it stuck. High. Streets heal oddly, fewer chains, more independence. An old post office, now a makerspace with laser cutters and tea. Saturday morning, a dad and daughter cut plywood into a shelf that fits the gap at home exactly. Pride is glue that doesn't show. Vi. The mapper union that breathes Scotland keeps asking, as it should. The conversation is honest, not hostile. Powers shift on things that live better close to home: housing, transport, energy, while the island still rose together on defense, debt, disaster. Wales speaks its language in more places: trains, courts, code. Not as a museum piece, but as daily bread. Northern Ireland lives with a protocol like a new knee. Awkward at first, then useful, then you forget which leg it is. The assembly starts, and one spring simply keeps going. England huge, various learns to be many Englands without sulking. Mayors make deals, buses improve. A town that lost its pit gains a battery plant. The union survives by choice, not habit abroad. The UK remembers it is a trading island with treaty instincts. It backs Ukraine. It does climate deals that matter. It flies less for meetings because screens finally learned manners. 7 small futures. Postcards you could plausibly receive from Hull: Mum, my first week at the turbine yard. Wind is louder than I thought. Pays good, union strong. Pub. Quiz Thursday, love. A from Dundee started the game studio. The city gave us a room and a mentor. Our first title is about a lighthouse. You'd hate it and secretly love it. J from Brecon, clinic van came to estate. Caught my diabetes. Early, Mrs. says I'm a different man. Walking the hill next weekend. Bring your boots. D. From South L opened the sorry reuse shop. We mend jeans alongside silk. The girls taught me to TikTok. I taught them to hem. Business is fun. M. From Derry. B. Trial works. Schools adopting hives next term. Honey for breakfast in canteens. Kids buzz more than the bees. E. From Swansea. Finished heat pump installs on our street. Bills down, house quiet. You can hear the kettle think, come stay. T. From Orkney. Tidal turbines survived the storm. We named her Maggie, and she is stubborn. The C. is employer, not enemy. R. What the Victorians would recognize, and what they wouldn't. They would nod at arguments in committees, at budgets that never stretch, at letters that make laws behave, at mourning that takes its time. They would blink at women in charge. Everywhere, at marriages of all kinds, at brown and black Britons calling this island simply home. At a doctor who is a Ghanaian Glaswegian and entirely ordinary, at a prime minister who prays in a temple their maps barely named. They would understand the tree in the window, the park full of families, the museum on a rainy day, the train that mostly arrives, the nurse who does not give up. They would not understand your phone, but they would understand your worry and your hope. Those are old. A winter evening, again closing the circle, it is December. In Middlesbrough, a family unboxes a small LED star and argues gently about where it goes. In Leicester, a Gurdwara kitchen turns out curries for anyone who knocks. Faith checked at the door and left happily uninspected. In Newcastle, a lad wheels his gran to see the big market lights. On the way home, he explains his apprenticeship with words that make her proud and slightly lost. In Aberystwyth, students sing in 2 languages and 3 keys, and everyone smiles anyway. The kettle clicks, a bus sighs at the stop. The radiators hiss for 20 sanctioned minutes. On the table, a leaflet from the council about insulation, a payslip with a line for pension, a library card, 2 election flyers that disagree politely. For once, a crayon drawing of a windmill, a phone showing a video call from Toronto, Accra, Ahmedabad, Sydney, the wide, ordinary diaspora of an island that learned to travel. From Kensington to Osborne to Bletchley to Brixton, the line holds. Build boldly, make it fair, keep it public where it matters, and leave the door on the latch that the work is not finished. It never was, but we have good tools, decent neighbors, and a memory for how to mend. Tomorrow someone will fix a gutter, file a standard, fit a heat pump, finish a poem, phone a friend, feed a ward. The small brave acts add up morning, and a sign in a church hall says, repair calf, in marker pen and optimism. A kettle breathes. A child feeds a dead toaster to a volunteer with a magnifying visor. 3 screws later, the filament glows like a small sunrise. At the next table, a nurse learns to darn socks the way her nan did, except the darning egg is 3D printed and glittery. Someone fixes a bike brake, someone fixes a hinge, someone fixes their mood. You can hear the old British motto rewritten under the chatter. Make do and mend and share how dot. This is how the next bit looks, not big bangs, but stitched minutes. Care that arrives before crisis, tools passed hand to hand, decisions made close to the people who feel them. Clever machines used like ladders, not thrones. The empire was a map. The future is a fabric. 1. The kitchen door, food, soil, and the weather. We live inside Kent, late afternoon. Rows of apple trees share their field with beans, hens, and lines of sunflowers that make bees drunk and children giddy. Agroforestry, says the farmer. which is a long word for stop being silly to the soil. He sells boxes by bike. The village WhatsApp pings when the plums are too ripe to wait. In a corner, a community freezer holds soups that remember last summer. Up north, a council buys long leases on floodplain and pays farmers to hold water like a neighbor's dog while the river is in a mood. There are footpaths on the new wetlands and benches where kingfishers are sometimes late and never sorry. On a tower block roof in Lewisham, 3 aunties run a garden, mint methy tomatoes, a trellis of bitter gourds that look like green dragons. They argue about compost and radio stations, then quietly save more money on veg than the council meeting ever will. Rule of the kitchen door. Tastes first, miles later. Dignity, always too, the learning room schools that fit the century and the child, A. Secondary in Bradford changes the timetable like moving a sofa so the room works. Mornings, maths, reading, the long muscles of knowledge. Afternoons, studios coding, carpentry, robotics, music tech, textiles. You can get a GCSE out of a band now if you can prove you learned statistics, teamwork, discipline, sound engineering, and how to make a bass line that doesn't argue with itself. A head teacher steals an idea from Finland and one from Ghana and calls it British because it is. A uniform that doesn't bankrupt anyone, a hot breakfast as default, and a longer school day where the last hour is clubs, not detention by another name. Exclusions drop. Teeth get seen at the pop-up dental van. Parents use the library corner while they wait. Nobody calls this innovation. They call it how it should be. Across town, an FA college hums at night. Care workers earning seniors. Laid-off machinists reskilling as windtechs. A lad who thought he hated school, discovering he loves TIG welding because it is art that pays. 3. The code cupboard digital that belongs to the street. The internet is a public square rented from private landlords. A few councils try a different tenancy. City data trusts run like libraries. Your energy numbers, bus taps, air quality readings kept. Safe, shared for public good, never sold at night. The UI is simple enough, your uncle will use it, and secure enough, your cousin the hacker will respect it. In Manchester, a Cope runs a neighborhood cloud-in to recycled shipping containers, cooled by northern weather. Local firms rent compute at cost. The waste heat warms a swimming pool. Teenagers on purple bikes deliver hot chips of machine learning to small businesses that never thought they'd need them, and now can't imagine going back. At a GP surgery in Derby, a decision support tool whispers possibilities. The doctor keeps their hand on the volume knob. The note in the patient app reads, "This plan was checked by a human who listened." The patient does the exercises because trust is medicine point for the care corridor from cradle to last light. A last light, a community diagnostic hub in Barnsley, sits between a leisure centre and a library like a sensible friend. Bloods, scans, a cup of tea. Advice that is not a leaflet. People go before they are ill because the bus stops outside and the receptionist smiles like it's her job. A care home in Swansea redesigns, shifts to a 4-day week with proper handovers. The home smells of soup at noon, not bleach at all hours. Carers pay inches up because someone in procurement remembered the spreadsheet is about human beings. Families visit on Tuesdays to teach phone settings and be taught how to ask for help without shame. Hospices open their doors wider. School kids come in to draw with residents. A Jamaican nurse sings softly in patois, and the pain moves back half a step. A British Pakistani family brings biryani, enough for the whole ward. Death is not a scandal. It is a moment in a community. 5. The town stitch high streets that remember. Why they existed. Paisley. The old post office now holds a makerspace with a kill, a laser cutter, a sewing bench, and a table that looks like every kitchen you ever loved. A lad prints bespoke brackets to repair his grand's curtain rail. A baker prototypes a stencil for cinnamon buns, shaped like the town's famous teardrop. A luthier repairs a guitar from 1964 and tells stories like glue. Shop fronts mix like a playlist, barbershop plus book swap, sorry shop plus alterations, indie pharmacy plus warm room, cafe by day, film club by night, repair cafe monthly, a corner for citizens' advice that is actually confidential enough to work. A small grant scheme 3 figures, not 5, keeps 10 rooms open over winter. It is the cheapest policy in the building. 6. The chorus arts as infrastructure. A council once cut the band and learned the hard way that silence is expensive. Now they fund choirs again. School choirs, a Sashanti lot at the docks. A Ukrainian diaspora choir that rehearses in a Baptist hall and breaks hearts in 3 languages. A grime workshop in a youth club whose Gaisari's monitors were bought on Gumtree and sound better for it. In Belfast, a theatre runs a writer's room where veterans, ex-prisoners, nurses, and asylum seekers swap pages and tea. A play about a binman's perfect route map sells out and sends 3 kids to drama school who would never have tried. In Cardiff, free Saturday strings turn into a youth orchestra that plays in care homes more than concert halls. A viola under a fluorescent light is still a spell. 7. The long argument democracy with better chairs, a lot of politics, feels like a room designed by people who never sit down. So towns borrow tools that work. Citizens' assemblies, chosen by petition, stipends, childcare, translation, a lunch that isn't an afterthought. Over 6 weekends, a cross-section of a city figures out how to cut emissions fairly. Cars are not banned. Streets are shared. Buses get cheaper. Pavements become honest. The bike lane is finally continuous. Traders are helped to adapt. Nobody gets a smug press release, just work orders. Parliament remains its baroque self. But committees steal the habit. Experts at the front, lived experience beside them, lobbyists at the back. A minister quotes a 19-year-old from Walsall in the House without making it weird. Voting stays precious and gets easier. Automatic registration. Sane ID rules. More booths where the buses are. A postal vote form with fewer